I'm not interested in photo ops.
Without the right accessories, any guy can be off the mark. Whether you've invested thousands in your arsenal or you own a single trusted firearm, a visit to AROutfitting.com is in order. It's one of the finest online selections of tactical optics and AR parts and add-ons, like EOTech, quick target acquisition with no peripheral loss. Browse the full range of Nikon scopes and binoculars. AROutfitting.com can illuminate your world with Streamlight gun-mounted lights from keychain to large handhelds up to 1,100 lumens. Find some stability with Battenfield Tactical Bipods. AROutfitting.com has CMMG gun parts, barrels, assemblies, handguards, part kits, and more. Plus magful clips and magazines. I know I've got you excited, so take a breath. Head to AROutfitting.com. The site's super easy to navigate and features a ton of technical info, including links to manuals. We also welcome vendor and manufacturer inquiries. Remember, if you don't see it, we can get it at AROutfitting.com.
You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network, because you can handle the truth.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero, because World War III is a really bad idea. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome to our show today. It's Wednesday, June 20th, 2018, getting on toward the end of the month here, coming up on the 4th of July holiday. And we have got a lot of stuff to talk about today. No worries about not having enough talking points. I'm probably not going to get to everything on the list. So let's get right on into it. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. Mike is in our control room, ready to answer the phone, put you on the air with your comments and questions. And getting right on into it. It's very obvious that the corporate media and the Democrats are making a big deal over this immigration situation as a distraction from the fallout from the Inspector General's report. So, of course, we're going to open our show talking about the Inspector General's report. And a lot more stuff is coming on out from those hearings and from the report itself. And Trey Gowdy was just stunned, apparently, that James Comey never questioned Hillary Clinton on what her intent was regarding the email server. Now, if you'll remember, back when Comey had that unprecedented press conference where he came on out and said that the FBI was recommending no charges, which, by the way, is not the FBI's job, he said that Hillary Clinton did not intend to do wrong. And now Trey Gowdy is saying, well, how did you know if you never actually asked her? And in any event, Title 18 does not require intent, carelessness, and negligence. If you accidentally place classified information in an insecure environment, that's a felony violation right there. So Trey Gowdy is starting to really get very angry about that. Meanwhile, over at the Department of Justice, apparently Jeff Sessions says he's going to let Rod Rosenstein continue to oversee the Robert Mueller Special Counsel witch hunt, despite the very obvious conflicts of interest and the animosity. That's dereliction of duty. Sessions needs to be fired for the future of this country. He's not up to the job of Attorney General. He's a disgrace. We need somebody in there who will do the job, like Larry Klayman or Judge Janine. And Trump needs to understand right now with the IG report and with this immigration thing already settling down, Trump just pulled the rug out from under them. It's time to put the focus back on that, because this gives Trump the high ground. It gives him the advantage. It gives him the initiative, and he needs to seize it and start. If he's going to drain the swamp, now's a good time to start here. Meanwhile, McCabe is refusing to testify at the Senate Judiciary hearing. He invokes his Fifth Amendment rights after failing to receive an immunity deal from prosecution in exchange for his testimony, which tells us there is something there that is self-incriminating. So again, the American people really do need to be paying more attention to this than to the immigration controversy, which is being fanned up. And remember, in yesterday's hearings, the Democrats tried to hijack the hearing about the Inspector General's report and say, we need to be talking about immigration. We need to be talking about this. And that's very obviously what they're trying to do, is get everybody distracted. Look over there. Look over there. You're being conditized again. You know, they're attacking Donald Trump for a policy that goes back to the Bush administration, but they're doing it right now because they don't want you, the American people, realizing just how crooked the FBI and the Department of Justice were in their investigation of Hillary Clinton. And, well, they didn't even investigate Hillary Clinton. They investigated the server itself, which is like investigating a gun, but not the person whose finger was on the trigger. Now, Inspector General Horowitz has confirmed he's investigating whether Strzok's anti-Trump bias impacted the launch of the Russia probe. And once again, we're seeing how the Democrats and the corporate media jumped the gun, because when the IG report came on out, the first thing they said is, oh, there's no bias. There's no bias whatsoever. And all the report really said is, we haven't found any yet. And now we're hearing from Horowitz, they're still looking. They are still looking. Now, we know that Strzok had an anti-Trump bias because of his text with Lisa Page, especially that one where he says, we're going to stop Trump, meaning we're going to stop Trump from getting into the White House, which, by the way, was not in the earlier text message logs given to these Senate committees. It only showed up recently. Now, we had heard about it out on the internet a long time ago, but it wasn't in the official version of the text messages given to the committees until recently. They were stonewalling. They were trying to hide it. And we still have that other issue that came up where apparently that a top-level Clinton campaign operative, Amanda Renteria, and Attorney General Loretta Lynch exchanged highly classified material with each other in 2016. Now, the first question that I would ask, I mean, apparently whatever it is so sensitive, Horowitz refused to talk about it in the hearings. But if it's highly classified, the first question that comes to me is, did Amanda have the necessary security clearances to be seeing that information? Because after all, she's just a campaign operative. She's not actually working in the government. And if she does not have the security clearance to see that information, then former Attorney General Loretta Lynch is also guilty of Title 18 violations. We're going to do a shout out now to our on-air affiliates who are just now rejoining our network. So the IG report is out there questioning why the FBI did not investigate Huma Abedin's emails during the Hillary probe. And there was clearly a probable cause issue, especially after these things started coming out about Anthony Weiner's laptop, which was seized by New York authorities in an unrelated investigation into Anthony Weiner's sending pictures of his wieners to underage girls. And they found all this email, including classified documents. And right there was the probable cause. They should have been a point of interest. And the FBI did not look. Now, apparently, Horowitz is saying that there are additional anti-Trump text messages from Lisa Page to Andrew McCabe showing an anti-Trump bias that have still been withheld from the public. Just stonewall, 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 cover up, cover up, cover up, cover up, cover up. Now, another issue that Horowitz is looking into. Remember, we reported how the IG report said that there were certain FBI agents who had leaked information to journalists in exchange for gifts, meals, tickets to sporting events, access to non-public events. These are important little things to a journalist, that last one especially here. But apparently Horowitz is now saying there were over 300 specific incidences of bribes being given to FBI agents by journalists. And he further came on out and said that 2 FBI agents who hated Trump are still working for Robert Mueller. And again, remember, Robert Mueller's entire legal team, his entire staff, are made up of Democrats, Clinton supporters, Clinton donors. It's very obviously not a fair and balanced and objective investigative team. They're all out there with a mission to get Donald Trump any way they can. Now, Representative Mark Meadows has unmasked these 2 unidentified Trump-hating FBI officials that were being referred to as Agent 1 and Agent 2. And one of them is Sally Moyer. The other is Kevin Klein-Smith. And they were also engaged in a romantic relationship like Strzok and Page. A lot of nookie going on over there in the FBI building, it looks like. In the case of Sally and Kevin, they did wind up getting married. So good for them, and congratulations to the newlyweds. But they still hate Donald Trump, and they're still working for Robert Mueller's investigation. Now, speaking of the FBI, Director Christopher Wray, when he testified to the Senate Judiciary Committee, came on out and said that Robert Mueller's investigation is not a witch hunt. So here we have yet another FBI director who is part of the cover-up. And it looks like both the Department of Justice and the FBI are simply handed off from one protector of the deep state to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next. And it's probably been decades since we've had an attorney general or a director of the FBI who were actually doing the job they're supposed to be doing. So it is a real corrupt, huge mess. And a lot of people are now coming on out and saying it's time for this to come to an end. Wayne Allen Root is out there saying that the initials FBI stand for Fire Bureau Immediately, and pointing out there isn't a shred of credibility left for the FBI. The FBI leadership and their top agents, investigators, were involved in a vast criminal conspiracy to rig the 2016 presidential election. These aren't guesses or opinions. These are facts gleaned from these text messages sent by these FBI employees. And we know that the FBI, at least, has been playing these kind of games for a very long time, going on back to, COINTELPRO, the day the hippies took over Disneyland, the framing of James Earl Ray. Another article that's coming on out from Reason.com. After the IG report, let's kill the FBI while we can. So word is getting on out there to the public. And the public is starting to basically say, yeah, these agencies do not serve the American people. They should be shut down. They're a waste of taxpayer funds. And I'm sorry for all those lower-level employees at the Department of Justice and the FBI who are not part of the criminal conspiracy, but you have to bear some of the responsibility for this, for not standing up and blowing the whistle. Your silence made you complicit. You're an accessory after the fact. When I first started doing my website almost a quarter of a century ago, I really thought that the wrongdoing I was discovering was confined to a very, very few people, and that our government was filled mostly with honorable individuals who really wanted to do a good job and serve the American people and serve the Republic. And I kept waiting for some of the other people in these agencies to stand up and say, we're going in the wrong direction. And sadly, it never happened. And we know now, looking back, that anybody in any one of these agencies not willing to go along with the conspiracies against our republic is ejected, gotten rid of. So it's time to pull the plug on both the Department of Justice and the FBI. If they're not going to do the job they're supposed to be doing, if they're in fact criminals themselves, it's time for them to go. Now, Trump's campaign manager for the 2020 campaign, Brad Perscale, has called for the firing of Attorney General Jeff Sessions and the ending of the Mueller investigation. And he's basically saying you can't obstruct something that was phony against you. And the IG report gives President Trump the truth to end it all. He's right about this. The IG report exonerates Donald Trump on the issue of firing James Comey. The IG report makes it very clear Comey was not doing his job properly. They're trying to pass it off as being insubordinate, like that's no big deal. But the reality is, when he went on TV, and he actually went down the list of felony Title 18 violations committed by Hillary Clinton, and then says, we at the FBI recommend no charges be brought because she didn't intend to do anything wrong. That's not his job. In fact, he was usurping the job of the Attorney General. Of course, she had already signaled she was just going to go along with, any way that was going to get Hillary Clinton off the hook, as she had privately told the Hillary Clinton campaign. She was not going to let the FBI get too close to Hillary Clinton. So they really are all crooks over there. So there's another story coming out of the Wall Street Journal, no less, saying that we're starting to see the showdown between the Justice Department and Congress. And I'm certainly hoping that Congress is up to it. But we're starting to hear talk about in the impeachment of Rod Rosenstein. Not the firing of, just outright impeach him. Congress has that right. Impeachment is not just for the president or the vice president. It is for any official that is caught engaging in unethical, immoral, criminal behavior. And if Jeff Sessions is not going to fire Rod Rosenstein, then Congress needs to do its duty and get him out of there. All right, let's take a phone call. Andy in Texas, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Well, hey, Mike, let's look for a minute. You said there's not a shred of confidence in this. There's not a shred of confidence in the entire U.S. government.
That's true.
This is a failure. These people have taken us from one point to another point, and they take forever to get to the end of something. Look at the Mueller investigation. Look at the Clinton investigation. All of this is just a disguise. This is far too fast for the American people. But look at how they can jump into a courtroom and use their Bill of Rights to save their behind. But you go to a courtroom and jump in there and try to save your butt with your Bill of Rights, and guess what happens to you? So,
yeah, I've read stories where judges will literally say the Constitution does not apply in this courtroom. At which point my response would be,
commercial code courtroom.
Yeah, my response would be, well, if the Constitution does not apply in this courtroom, then from where does this court get its authority over me? But it is a mess here, and I know you're very disappointed, and I hear your pessimism every time that you call on in. But the whole point of this exercise of what we're doing here at Republic Broadcasting is to educate the American people as to the reality of what their government is. And we're winning on that one. We're winning the war for the minds of America. Polls are showing that confidence and trust in the U.S. government is at an all-time low.
But we as American people have to stand up a little bit more and voice our opinions, because my understanding is that this country was built on the Bill of Rights and the Constitution, and that's what I learned a little bit of that in high school, and I realize now that they purposely kept that out of my high school curriculum because they didn't want me to know my rights. I'm a better slave if I don't know my rights. And my kids, I've got a kid 27 down to 18. They didn't learn nothing about the Constitution in these Common Core schools that I had to put them through. And I apologize to my kids. I apologize to them all the time for putting them through Common Core. I should have homeschooled them. But they've got to live in this post-constitutional country in which they get to watch these people on TV who can use what they were told the Constitution is for their benefit, but we can't use it for our benefit. We're really past the breaking point here. We really are.
I think we're headed to the breaking point.
Really,
I think we're headed to a Soviet Union-style collapse of the federal government, probably be triggered by an economic collapse, which is being accelerated by the trade wars, and we're just going to have to ride it out. And then after that, it'll be time for the American people to stand up and basically kick out the existing political establishment and the money junkies and basically reset the country and go back to that Constitution and, in my opinion, the first 13 amendments. And just go from there, and get everybody, to stop whining and thinking that the government owes them anything, and go back to a nation of self-reliant people who are able to build a new nation rather than waiting for somebody else to just, give it to them after taking it from somebody else.
Well, what they've done is they've regulated our jobs completely away from us. I mean, even if I want to start a company now, and I've owned 3 companies in my life, even if I want to start a company now, it's going to cost me an arm and a leg to start that darn thing. And then they're going to regulate me throughout the entire process of owning the company. I mean, what is free in this country anymore? Is there anything free here, Mike?
Not really. I mean, we're being regulated to death, and it's one of the reasons that so many businesses have shut down in this country and gone to other places to do business. Anyway, Andy, we got to take a break for commercials. Thank you for the phone call. We'll be right back.
Corporate media dominates the American opinion. Finding independent voices that counter this avalanche is becoming increasingly difficult. With the endless corruption running rampant throughout our government, independent voices are needed more than ever to battle the offensive against our freedoms and liberties. As a listener of RBN, no one understands this concept better than you. Now it's up to you to do your part. The time has come for you to take action and begin broadcasting the truth to hundreds or thousands of people every month. Sound impossible? Quite the contrary. With pointed slogans from LibertyStickers.com, you can reach countless sleeping Americans unaware that they live in a real-life wonderland. LibertyStickers.com has a huge inventory of political bumper stickers and messages that reflect the truth about our government, our politicians, and the future of America. With so many in stock, there's one perfect for you. Visit us today at LibertyStickers.com. Again, that's LibertyStickers.com. Do your part. Your voice is important. Let it be heard.
Folks, we're living in a world the likes of which we've never perceived any clearer than we do now. The plan for global governance has been in the works for generations and would have likely been achieved by now, but for the fact that the globalists left open their Achilles heel. With all their tools, Federal Reserve System, fiat currency, no child left behind, and then Common Core education introduced to our schools to dumb us down, vaccines, pharmaceuticals to lobotomize us, GMO foods, insertion of compromised or bought and paid for politicians, judges, mainstream media propaganda, all pieced together like a puzzle designed to ultimately bring the world under submission. But with all their strategy, they forgot one thing: knowledge. And knowledge is power. With knowledge, their bombardment is nullified. Folks, with that, as brilliant and knowledgeable as you've become, among the wisest audience of any radio audience in the world, and you are, I want you to take a moment to reflect and ask yourself, how much of that knowledge did I obtain from Republic Broadcasting Network? How high has my consciousness been raised since I've been a listener? How fast am I now able to discriminate truth from fake news by being a Republic Broadcasting listener? How clear am I now able to see the world since I've been listening to RBN? Ask yourselves those questions, folks. Then ask yourself, what is that knowledge worth to me? Like my morning coffee, how would I survive without it? A voice of truth in a sea of lies. Do we not all need to make sure it survives? Like public broadcasting, we are now finding we can only survive with listener support. Censorship, advertisers being attacked, truth itself being attacked. It's the only way through this. We at Republic Broadcasting humbly ask you to become a supporter. Look at your budget and make a determination of what Republic Broadcasting is worth to you and what you can afford on a monthly basis. Go to republicbroadcasting.org and pledge $20, $30, $40, $50, if possible, $100 a month or more if it's affordable. Click the donate button and become a regular monthly donor. Assure both us and yourself that Republic Broadcasting truth will continue to flow like that morning coffee. The network thanks you.
When all this twisted steel was swept away, did these remaining holes reflect what's really happened.
And aloha, welcome back to our show. And yes, Republic Broadcasting, and for that matter, whatreallyhappened.com, we do need your help. Every little bit helps us continue doing what we're doing, educating the American people as to the reality of what's going on in this country. And there's no such thing as too small a donation. I've gotten emails from people saying, I'd love to donate, but the most I could send is like $10. And $10 is great, you know? Remember the old saying, for want of a nail, the kingdom fell? That's how close it's getting around here. Anyway, if you can help, please do. The postal address where you can send a check, money order, or if you prefer anonymity, cash, is Republic Broadcasting Network, 2251 Double Creek Road, number 302, Round Rock, Texas, 78664. If you want to call in and pledge to be a recurring subscriber, the number is 800-724-2719, extension 1 during business hours and extension 3 at all other times. So the network thanks you. All right, let's take a quick phone call here. Terry in California, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mike, first thing I want to say is that $10, I give $10 a month, and then if I want to give more, I make a donation. But I got that minimum every month coming out. But, you know, I go along with the guy who was a little bit hesitant because in your ads in the beginning, you started with $20, you know, 20, 30, 50, 100 a month. And then the next ad came out and started at $30. I said, well, I don't know if he wants my $10 or not, but, you know, now you made the point, but it was confusing on, you know, those promotions you were coming out with in the beginning.
First of all, thank you for your generous support of Republic Broadcasting. And second, those ads were scripted. To be recorded, and I don't think anybody was really paying attention to the numbers. They just said this is a starting point. But I've had people donate just a single dollar to whatreallyhappened.com, and every bit of it is greatly appreciated because we're in a fight not just for the future of our republic, we're in a fight for literally the life of the entire world. Because if we're already in a world war, and if it escalates to peer-to-peer, China, Russia, the United States, and it goes nuclear, it's going to be a bad day for anybody not wearing 2 million sunblock. And that's why we're doing this. We're dealing with government leaders who are absolutely convinced that they can win and survive a nuclear war. And frankly, I think they're delusional.
Yeah, I agree. The other thing is, you know, like Julie out there in Round Rock, you know, you kind of reserved her phone number for somebody who wants to call on a recurrent basis. Why can't I call her and say, I want to, you know, I've already given $10 a month and I want to give another 45 this month because I got it available. I'm on a fixed income. You know, instead, I guess in order to do that, I got to go to your website and do all that stuff with PayPal and all that stuff.
Or you could just, you know, if you've got a little extra, if you've got a little extra to send, just write out a check and send it to Republic Broadcasting Network, and you have to write it out payable to Republic Broadcasting Network. However you can make it work, it is greatly appreciated.
Yeah, well, then I got to find my checkbook and write a check, find a stamp, envelope. If I can just call her and give her credit card number, you know, during the month, it's not a recurrent gift, that'd be more convenient for me.
I have to be very honest. I don't know if they can take. Oh yeah, I just got it from our control room. They can take a credit card at any time.
Yeah, because when you advertise this, you say for, you know, only recurrent donation, call this number. Why can't I call it, you know, if I want to do a one-time thing? Because I already got the recurrent one going.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can. I mean, John Stadmiller wanted to get subscribers like PBS has, and there are a lot of people who donate using PayPal who just have an automatic payment thing set up where it's like $5 every month and so forth. But however it can work. But yes, you can call that number and they will take a credit card from you. Okay?
Okay. Yeah, the reason I called, Mike, was we're talking about Comey and, against Trump and supporting Hillary in the election and all that. I'm trying to figure out why then, if he's doing that, why would he drop the charges against Hillary and then right before the election put him back on again? Because that probably really hurt her. I think she was I'm not a supporter of hers, of course, but it seems like if he wanted to support her, he wouldn't have come back with those charges right
Well,
before the election.
his hand got forced. First of all, he never charged her. All he did was reopen the investigation, but his hand got forced by the Southern District of New York prosecutors who had Anthony Weiner's laptop, and they were out there threatening to go public that, yes, there were additional emails, including classified information, and now, of course, it's come out in the IG report that Comey just didn't want to deal with it, but his hand got forced. Anyway, listen, Terry, got to do another commercial break. Thank you very much for the phone call. Thank you for your support for Republic Broadcasting. Thank you for your support for WhatReallyHappened.com, and we will be right back.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Homeowners, are you in foreclosure, expecting to be served with a foreclosure lawsuit, or suspect your lender has coerced you into an illegal mortgage transaction? A huge number of mortgages made in the last 10 years have legal issues and are possibly defective. State laws and the U.S. Supreme Court have upheld that defective mortgage documents are grounds for foreclosure defense and for counterclaims in favor of the homeowner. If your mortgage has been sold or assigned since closing the loan, it may be defective and you may be paying the wrong party, and the lender may not have standing or the right to foreclose or collect payments under the law. If you would like to know if your mortgage is legal or not, or know if you are paying the right party, we can help. Our initial consultations are free of charge. We are not attorneys. We are legal researchers and work closely with experienced lawyers who know how to help you find the evidence to help you keep your home. Call toll free 1-855-2-KEEP-IT. That's 1-855-2-KEEP-IT today.
Tired of being lied to by mass media? It's growing more and more apparent today that news is received less and less through standard media outlets. Even with a growing audience every day, RBN is beginning to direct more efforts into social media. Social media and the use of the internet is fast becoming the primary source of people for news, regardless of demographic. RBN has set out to provide some of the best news on the internet through republicbroadcasting.org, and also has begun to use the tools to our advantage by way of social media. Republic Broadcasting is now operating a Facebook page to function as yet another avenue to have our collective voice reach new audiences across not only America, but across the globe as well. The Facebook page features not only news, but also an RBN player to listen to our broadcasts. Get involved by visiting facebook.com/Republic Broadcasting and liking our page and share it with your friends and family, because you can handle the truth.
Without the right accessories, any guy can be off the mark. Whether you've invested thousands in your arsenal or you own a single trusted firearm, a visit to AROutfitting.com is in order. It's one of the finest online selections of tactical optics and AR parts and add-ons, like EOTech, quick target acquisition with no peripheral loss. Browse the full range of Nikon scopes and binoculars. AROutfitting.com can illuminate your world with Streamlight gun-mounted lights from keychain to large handhelds up to 1,100 lumens. Find some stability with Battenfield tactical bipods. AROutfitting.com has CMMG gun parts, barrels, assemblies, handguards, part kits, and more, plus mag-full clips and magazines. I know I've got you excited, so take a breath. Head to AROutfitting.com. The site's super easy to navigate and features a ton of technical info, including links to manuals. We also welcome vendor and manufacturer inquiries. Remember, if you don't see it, we can get it at AROutfitting.com.
We the people, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show. And we're talking, obviously, about the IG report and its fallout. And now that Trump has ended the controversy over the child separation at the border, the Democrats don't have a distraction. They're going to try and come up with one, but we can put the focus back on the IG report. Representative Mike Rogers is out there saying it's time to fire Peter Strzok. Now, he has been escorted out of the FBI building, but he is still being employed, technically working for Human Resource Department. But even Chuck Grassley is out there saying, look, if the people who did these wrong things are not fired, then nothing changes. And he's absolutely right. Because if you turn a blind eye, if people like James Comey can behave the way they did and nothing bad happens to them, they'll just go on doing more bad things. So, yeah, there needs to be some impeachments and some firings. And, yeah, that whole... I understand how impractical it is to get rid of the Department of Justice and the FBI, but definitely that top leadership should all be completely replaced. Meanwhile, in another part of the swamp here, article came out of no less than Fox News asking, why is the Democrats' bizarre IT scandal still being ignored? Because there is a serious situation there. You have the Awan brothers, who were hired in to be IT experts by members of Congress and Debbie Wasserman Schultz. They apparently, because of Debbie Wasserman Schultz, did not go through the normal vetting. And Imran Awan was doing work for a number of House members, and then he was joined in this work by 7 other family members who had almost little or no computer technology expertise, including his wife and 2 brothers. And at one point, one of his brothers was actually fired for incompetence, but he was still being paid by other congressional offices. Now, in February of 2016, the House Office of Inspector General revealed $120,000 worth of office equipment belonging to the office of Congresswoman Yvette Clarke went missing. And at that time, Imran's brother, Abid Awan, worked for Representative Clarke in an IT capacity and was thought to be involved in the equipment's disappearance. Now, don't forget, when Imran Awan was getting ready to leave the country, his neighbor just noticed that the trash bins were just filled with all of these computer components, hard drives, and all sorts of stuff that were clearly stamped as property of the U.S. government. And he reported it, which is what brought this whole scandal to light. And now we know that the Awan brothers, especially Imran, were improperly accessing the computers of members of the United States Congress. And so the question has to be, was espionage being committed? Now, what's really interesting is that after Imran Awan was basically forbidden, kicked out of the Congress over suspicions of improper access to these computers, he continued to be on Debbie Wasserman Schultz's payroll right up to the day he got arrested. Why is this still being ignored? There is a there. There's probable cause for a full investigation. But if I am correct in my theory that Hillary Clinton was replaying the 1996 Chinagate scandal using her private email server with weaker security than Ashley Madison to sell U.S. secrets to foreign interests, and using her charitable, and I use that word loosely, foundation to collect and launder the money, then the next question is, were they working together? Or was it 2 separate espionage operations going on inside the United States government? And if so, where the heck was the FBI, which is supposed to have counterintelligence as one of its major responsibilities? So now the Democrats are coming on out. They're starting to declare war on Trump supporters again. They're starting to ramp up for the midterms this November. And they're going back to something that they were using in 2016, how Trump supporters are part of a cult. They're members of a cult. And they're not rational people. They didn't vote for Trump because they actually thought he was better. They're part of a cult. And talk about the pot calling the kettle black, because we know that Hillary Clinton ran her entire campaign as a personality cult. There never really was a platform that they were running on. But the main takeaway from the IG report, and this is something I hope you will all share with all your friends. The IG report makes it clear there was never a proper investigation of Hillary Clinton and her email server. They didn't even investigate Hillary herself. It was just the email server. That's in the IG report. So there's never been a proper investigation into why and how Hillary was using this private email server and whether or not it was being used for espionage. Remember, the hacker Guccifer, who broke into her server and said it was actually very easy to do, saw there were at least 10 other foreign IPs logged in going through the documents on that server. So if we have not had a full and proper investigation into Hillary Clinton and her email server, it's time for the American public to start demanding one. All right, turning on over to the war zones. The Syrian army is attacking militants in Daraa province yet again, near the village of Busar al-Harir, northeast of the southern Syrian city of Daraa. And clashes continued until early this morning. No major advance was carried out by the Syrian Arab Army and its allies. And pro-government sources are saying this development is actually a trial balloon. In other words, they're trying to feel out ISIS and Al-Qaeda's defenses and where they're going to go from there. But on the same day, Russian presidential envoy for Syria, Alexander Lavrentiev, said that there are still notable numbers of ISIS and Hayat Tahrir al-Sham militants in southern Syria. And then the announcement came following a meeting including representatives of Turkey, Iran, and Russia on the de-escalation zones agreement. And it's another indication that the Russian, Iranian, Syrian bloc is not going to tolerate the presence of these groups in the war-torn country. Nor should they. They're terrorists, or at least that's what we've all been told. Can you imagine somebody saying, okay, we've got ISIS living out there in Colorado. Let's just let them have that part of the country and leave them alone. That would be utterly ridiculous. Now, apparently the Syrian city Swida has been shelled by the Syrian opposition factions. This is the first time they've been hit with artillery since 2015. But apparently there were no casualties. Mostly just building damage. And Israel managed to lose one of their surveillance drones patrolling the northern border, and it fell in Syria. And I imagine the Syrians are going to grab it and reverse engineer it. It's one of their Skylark drones. It's a very small, very lightweight surveillance drone. It's not weaponized. But Syria may reverse engineer it in order to figure out ways to jam it or bring it down. Now, despite the U.S. Senate voting to block the sale of the F-35 to Turkey, apparently Turkey is expecting the U.S. will deliver at least the first batch of fighters on June 21st. They were already apparently on the way. And, of course, the ships could be ordered to turn back. But Turkey is out there saying they expect the planes to be delivered. We'll see if that actually happens. All right, we're going to take a phone call. Peter in Los Angeles, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mike, wanted to just comment on something that you were talking about earlier about the, quote, investigations and all that.
Yes.
And how I remind everybody that they didn't even look at Hillary's server. It never was even looked at. The whole thing revolved around that. It didn't even look at it. And of course, Hillary was not put under oath. And she was never even put under oath, never had to testify. And everybody around her was given immunity. All the direct reports were given immunity.
Yes.
So, and Mike, it's very reminiscent to the way after 9/11, when they did the 9/11 investigation and commission report, and where Cheney and Bush were not under oath and testified together. Remember, on the buddy system?
Yes.
Remember? But that's the way it works. Nothing ever happens. Nothing ever will. These people are above the law. This whole system's got to go.
I think this whole system is self-destructing. And the main reason that's happening is because the American people are now awake and seeing the real nature of the government. All that propaganda that we got fed in grade school, we're all realizing. We're looking back on it and saying, what a load of bovine excrement we were being fed about our nation and our government. And we know that now. And if you have a government that has lost the trust and beyond that, the obedience of their general population, that's a government that's definitely headed for a major fall, especially when you bring in just how fragile the economy is right now and how overstretched we are militarily around the globe.
Yeah, it's like, remember, the Gettysburg Address, of the people, by the people, for the people.
Yes.
It's of the billionaires in Israel, for the billionaires in Israel, by the, that's what it is.
Yeah.
And it's the billionaires that run everything. And eventually, everything comes around to what they want. And the government's for sale, and the government's just to exercise their will. And they will not, Mike, they'll never hamstring the agencies, the agencies they rely on to coerce people to do their bidding, to be hamstrung. So the FBI is there, and the Justice Department is there to uphold what they want to do. The deep state, the billionaire owners, will never allow that to be compromised so that they can oppress us all the better.
Well, in hindsight, it's obvious that Thomas Jefferson was correct, because when the Founding Fathers set up this nation, they tried to come up with a government system that would prevent powerful individuals from hijacking it. But Thomas Jefferson said at the time it wouldn't last. He predicted that the United States that he had created would only last about 100 years, because by the end of the 100 years, it would have been corrupted by the wealthy and the powerful, and there would be a need for a new revolution. So obviously I don't advocate revolution, I do see so many parallels between the current U.S. government and the former Soviet Union, not to mention with ancient Rome, where I really do think we're going to see the United States government come crashing down, which, when you look at world peace, I think it would be a great thing for planet Earth, because the United States, together with Israel, are instigating all these wars all over the planet. According to Bernie Sanders, the U.S. is militarily engaged in 76 different countries. If the U.S. government comes crashing down, then all of a sudden peace comes to those 76 countries. And
Mike,
yeah.
If it's not us, and there's 76 countries, and probably more, it's the Brits, it's the French, it's the Germans, and they're all answerable to this in their systems to the same billionaires, the same Israel people, all the same people are running them all. Can't even dock a boat in Paris.
You're assuming that a collapse here in the United States of America would stay here in the United States of America. And I don't see that happening because of globalism. I mean, if you look back at how the 2008 mortgage-backed security meltdown wrecked Wall Street, it spread to Europe because of economic globalism, and some of those European banks almost got taken down. And in their rush to create a global society, they've created a political climate that could lead to a global revolution, because I'm sure that the people in these other countries like Britain and France are also aware how their nations have been hijacked by the ultra-rich. And as we saw back in France, there comes a point where people just say, enough is enough. These lords don't really need that much money, and certainly to the point of starving the general population. So I really don't see things continuing the way they are for much longer. I wish I knew when it was going to happen, and frankly, I'm a little surprised it hasn't happened already. But we're definitely getting close.
Mike, I look upon what's the whole refugee crisis that's going on worldwide, and frankly, and here too.
Yes.
With the borders and all that, but as an attempt of the billionaire owners to make sure that divide and conquer us. If they bring them in, they win some allies for the government, which of course they control. And it's just a way to dilute the power of the people who actually live in these countries to stand up against the billionaires.
You're absolutely right. I mean, we know the Democrats want the illegal immigrants to come into this country because they're going to sign them up to vote, even though that is also illegal, to try and sway the election their way. Again, the American people are waking up to what's going on. As far as the refugee crisis in Europe, we're going to be talking about that a little bit later in the show. We could be watching the beginning of the end of the EU experiment. And all of George Soros' money is not going to be able to stop it if the general populations are saying, we've had it with being part of the EU, we've had it with being part of this refugee experiment. And it's like the people in Great Britain are getting very angry that despite their vote for Brexit, their own government, much of their own government, is still trying to sell them out to the globalists. Anyway, Peter, we got to let you go. Got to take another break for commercials, and we will be right back.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
Do you or a loved one suffer migraine headaches? Listen to what scientist Kurt Hendricks has to say.
If you are one of the millions of people who get migraines, you need to know about MiGrelief. Hi, I'm Kurt Hendricks, the scientist who created MiGrelief, the patented dietary supplement that addresses nutritional deficiencies in adults and children with migraines. Thousands of physicians and pharmacists recommend MiGrelief.
Call 800-MIG-7354 or visit MIG911.com.
Do you know there is an ongoing war right here in America? Are you aware that U.S. citizens have been classified as enemies of the state since 1933? Have you recognized that our entire government is really a vast network of interlocking corporations engaged in commerce? Look up Title 28, Section 3002. Tune in to In Defense of Humanity on Saturday nights at 7 p.m. Central Time. Find out what's really going on and learn how to protect yourself and your family as flesh and blood men and women living in a corporate reality.
Do you or someone you know suffer from chest pain, blood pressure, cholesterol, or irregular heartbeat? Are you looking for a more natural solution to overcome these health challenges? You hear the ads all the time. If this stuff's so good, why doesn't my doctor prescribe it? That's easy. Doctors are not trained in natural medicine. Extendivite Heart Tonic does want you to be as healthy as you can be, and it really works. Take Extendivite for 6 months and your doctor will say, I don't know what you're doing, but don't stop. It's working for you. Get the dependability of Extendivite. Just see how you feel in 6 months. A 2-month supply of either capsules or liquid is only $69.95 plus shipping and handling. Call 1-877-928-8822. That's 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
When all this twisted steel was swept away, did these remaining holes reveal what's really happened?
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. We're going to go right to the telephones to Mark in Georgia. Aloha, Mark. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Did you get my email, or did you have a chance to review it? It turns out this thing with Tommy Robinson, that I get the impression that this arrest and the hasty trial without proper arrest, that's part of the political theatrics to make people get all bent out of shape about, oh, look what they did to this poor guy. The English Defense League is being heavily funded by the Rothschilds, and they tried to, I know I got his name on something here, but he was a member of the British Nationalist Party, and he basically went on record that basically they offered him a bunch of money for two conditions. You can't criticize the bankers, you can't criticize Israel. And he said, I'm going to criticize whoever I deem worthy of criticism, and he refused the money. And apparently Tommy Robinson is not his name, and he was basically prosecuted for fraud regarding a passport and some mortgage fraud. And he was involved with the Rothschilds on that one. Of course, the Rothschilds themselves don't go to jail. They get other people to go to jail for them, right?
By the way, it's pronounced Rothschilds.
Rothschild. Oh, okay. Thank you. But like I say, did you get a chance to review that email I sent you, or no?
I did get it, and I did look through it. But at this point, Tommy Robinson is kind of low down on my list of priorities. I mean, I covered the story when it first happened.
I understand.
And, again, the wars and the Inspector General report and the political corruption are taking priority. And as I said at the top of the show, I've got more talking points than I'm ever going to get through on today's program.
I understand. That's fine.
I can't cover everything, and Tommy Robinson's just not a priority.
Right. But you do appreciate that this thing about his being arrested and put in jail, and then they're reporting that the jail he's in is in 70% Muslim population.
Well, that turned out to be that's fake news. That's fake news.
Exactly.
That's been discredited.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, and so that's the thing is that this whole thing looks like he may, as far as I know, he's over in Club Med, having drinks with hot women, while they're making all this theatrics go on, because we don't really know where he is right now. All we know is that he apparently wrote some kind of letter, but as you say, there's bigger fish to fry at this point.
Yeah.
And I appreciate your concern on that point. All right. But, the corruption mainly has to do with this banking system that we have now, right?
Well, the entire banking system is corrupt, and I don't know if you're watching on YouTube, but I'm wearing a T-shirt sent in by a listener that says, Jesse James was right. The bankers are the real outlaws.
Really? So
yes.
You have is that on your What Really Happened website where I can get the link to your YouTube where you go on live on YouTube
right
every day?
It's right up at the top. Anyway, I got to let you go. We got to do station identification, and we'll be back after these few words.
Many people write us about their experience with Extendivite. Allow me to read you one from Amazon.com. I just wanted you to know I saw my doctor and I laughed because he said, "I don't know what you're doing, but keep doing it." I have been taking Extendivite. I had borderline high blood pressure, heart flutter, high cholesterol. I changed my diet and included Extendivite with an amazing turnaround for the better. A few months later, I had a doctor's appointment and took a stress test. I passed. No heart flutter, blood pressure was perfect. My doctor even took me off my medicine. I thank you truly from the bottom of my heart. This stuff works, and I'm so grateful for Extendivite. Thank you, Justin G. Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. Call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
You're listening to Republic Broadcasting Network because you can handle the truth.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network, where you'll find out what the Fukushima's going on.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. And if you watched Donald Trump's presser this morning, where he was talking about signing the executive order over the separation of children from families, something very weird kind of happened on ABC's feed, because right in the middle of it, that little lower third, the chyron, came up with a banner headline: Manafort pleads guilty to 5 charges of manslaughter. And it wasn't up there for very long, but of course Manafort has not in fact pled guilty to 5 charges of manslaughter. He has not been charged with manslaughter. And ABC has tweeted out an apology and say they're investigating to find out what happened. Well, I would say that somebody with a political bias at ABC just decided to sneak that in there and get some fake news going. But that's very unprofessional. And maybe it's my bias coming out of having worked in the entertainment industry and having actually worked for ABC briefly during that time. It's unprofessional to do things like that. And it seems like with all the political corruption coming out of our capital, it's starting to impact the rest of the country. There's an old saying that a fish rots from the head. And another way of putting it is that any hierarchical structure, whether it's a corporation or an entire nation, will eventually inherit the morals and manners and behavior of those at the very top. And we certainly seem to be seeing that a lot. Okay, let's get on down here to the Yemen. Things are going very, very bad there. After 3 years of conflict, it's estimated 22 million people out of a population of 27 million in Yemen are in need of humanitarian assistance. Some 4.5 million children and women are suffering from malnutrition. 2.9 million people are internally displaced. This is a humanitarian catastrophe by any measure. And still, Great Britain and the United States and Saudi Arabia continue to pound on them because they won't accept their internationally approved government. Now, the corporate media likes to call them the Houthi rebels. They're not rebels. The Houthi are the government of Yemen. They were the government of Yemen before the U.S. went in several years ago and did an intervention and brought down the legitimate Yemeni government and put in puppet rulers. And the people of Yemen said they don't want to live under puppet rule. And that's where this all came about. The U.S. needs to smash Yemen down and make an example of them so that the rest of the provinces of the American empire don't get these uppity ideas that they can stop being part of the American empire. Now, the battle for Hodeidah, which is the Yemeni port city, is intensifying. The Saudis are in control of the airport. The port, however, is still open, and the dock workers, knowing what they risk, are still at the dock unloading aid from United Nations ships as fast as they can. And they know how important it is. Now, at some point, sadly, I think the port is going to fall under the control of the U.S., Saudi, British, I think French are in there now, coalition. And the people of Yemen are going to be cut off. And at that point, I would like to hope the United Nations would step up and say there has to be humanitarian aid. But of course, if it goes to the Security Council, it'll get vetoed again by the United States, possibly Great Britain. Meanwhile, Saudi Arabia has announced they're going to have a relief plan. Not to worry, there's no humanitarian disaster coming. We're going to take care of it all. But the International Rescue Committee has dismissed this Saudi coalition relief plan as little more than a public relations gimmick. And that if Saudi Arabia really was concerned about the civilian, non-combatant population of Yemen, then what they would be easiest to do is to keep that port open for humanitarian aid after they take control of it. But I don't think that's going to happen. The goal is to literally starve an entire nation of people into surrendering their own government and accepting foreign rule. We're getting reports from some of the Yemeni prisoners that the United Arab Emirates officers are engaging in torture, that they've set up 18 secret prisons in Yemen. This is being reported by Associated Press. And it's like Abu Ghraib all over again. Humiliating sexual torture, real torture, and all of it backed by the United States government. All right, we're going to do a shout out now to our on-air affiliates who are just now rejoining the network. Now, Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, at a meeting with CSTO foreign ministers in Almaty, announced Russia's desire to gain access to what are called reference laboratories that were opened with U.S. financial support in Armenia and Kazakhstan. What he's talking about are laboratories producing biological weapons. And Lavrov basically quoted the publication Kommersant. Our special services and scientists are tense with the appearance of these laboratories. They do not rule out this can somehow be later used against us. And there's a valid concern. As you know, biological weapons were banned by international treaty. The United States still hasn't destroyed their stockpiles. There's reason to think that the massive cholera outbreak going on in Yemen is a biological attack. And it wouldn't be the first time that cholera is used as a biological weapon. When Japan was going into China prior to World War II, they were throwing cholera in all the wells of all the villages they passed. And then you have to look at how the Doctors Without Borders went into Yemen and set up a dedicated cholera treatment facility, and just as soon as it was completed, it was bombed. Down in Israel, there's been more bombings by Israel in Gaza. They hit 9 targets in Gaza, insisting that they're only targeting Hamas infrastructure. But in a place packed that tightly, you can't avoid hitting civilians. And it's not like Israel has ever demonstrated a concern about not hitting civilians, especially if you remember the Bloody Monday massacre, where those Israeli snipers in fortified positions were shooting at civilian non-combatants with these butterfly bullets that are designed to inflict maximum damage. They were hitting protesters, they were targeting the journalists, they were targeting the first responders. Israel is now looking at a law that would allow the seizure of Christian properties. Now, the Islamic Christian Commission for the Support of Jerusalem and Holy Sites has warned of a draft law for a project which would allow the Israeli occupation government to confiscate land sold by the Orthodox Church to private investors. Now, it's kind of a roundabout way, but apparently Israel has always coveted that land, and the Orthodox Church is in serious financial straits. They're basically cut off. Tourists can't get there. Worshippers can't get there. And they're running out of money. Right now, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre is actually closed. They don't have enough funds to operate. But the leaders of 3 main churches in Jerusalem sent a message to Netanyahu asking him to scrap this bill, which would allow the government to expropriate church land in the holy city. Of course, you know, Netanyahu's idea is Israel is supposed to be a Jewish-only nation. And there's no secret. Israel wants that Temple Mount. They want the Muslim religious edifices off of it. They've never been respectful to the Christian edifices. They're openly hostile. You know, something that's always bothered me about the Christian Zionists in this country and how they love Israel and they support Israel, and they don't understand that love and respect and support is a one-way street, because Israel is disdainful of Christians inside Israel. Israel is also trying to intensify the links between BDS and terrorism. Of course, there are no links. And one of the things we have to be careful about is over time, the definition of terrorism is being mutated. They want you to react to the shock value of terrorism and terror as it starts getting applied to things which aren't really acts of terrorism. Now, an act of terrorism is somebody goes on in to a public place and they set off a bomb, and then they release a message saying, we are the United Belly Button Lint Front, and there will be more bombings unless you do this. Because in a genuine act of terrorism, there's always socio-political intent behind it. But Israeli Strategic Affairs Minister Gilad Erdan is upping the government's efforts to link the BDS movement with terrorism, saying they're trying to get it declared a terrorist organization, at which point subservient governments around the world, including the United States of America, could move to actually shut it down. Now, getting on back to the Bloody Monday massacre, and I mentioned this appears to be Israel's equivalent of the Amritsar massacre in India, which was a turning point. Historians look back at that and realize that's the point at which British control over India began to decline, leading to Britain eventually leaving with as much dignity and grace as they could, and India and Pakistan becoming their own independent nations. And while Jews in Israel are reported as being fully on board with the violence being done to the Palestinians, we're hearing from Jews in other countries, no, this was across the line. And over in Great Britain, 75 members of the Jewish community sent an open letter to the Board of Deputies of British Jews condemning its support for Israel's violence against Palestinian protesters in the Gaza border. And the letter read, "We are appalled that the Board of Deputies, which claims to be the voice of British Jews, has once again attempted to justify the massacre of unarmed Palestinian people by the Israeli military." And it takes a lot for Jewish people to say things like that, because it's actually part of their religion that you're never to criticize publicly a fellow Jew. And so they're literally going against their own religious dogma to stand up and do what is, for lack of any other description, to do what's right. To do what's right and point out that what Israel is doing to the Palestinians is wrong. And it almost looks like Israel is just ramping up the abuse and provocations, because now we're hearing that Israeli soldiers are setting dogs on elderly Palestinians and kids in the Jenin refugee camp. And when they go into the Jenin refugee camp, apparently these 10 Israeli soldiers raided the refugee camp at 4 o'clock in the morning with 2 attack dogs. They forcibly entered 2 homes, woke up all the residents, turned the homes topsy-turvy and detained 2 people. Now, there's another story that has come on out, this one from the Middle East Monitor, where Israeli forces are now demanding the residents of the Tel Ramudi neighborhood in Hebron to strip before going through the checkpoint to enter their homes. Just to completely strip, which was something the Nazis used to do, I would like to point out. But when you look at all of this, night raids, attack dogs, for the West Bank Palestinians, their homes are certainly not their castles. And Israel's border police are increasingly using attack dogs to go after people in the middle of the night. And this is on top of other little fun things the IDF likes to do, like welding the doors shut and telling the people they have to go in and out of the broken windows. Now, as you know, Israel is getting ready to pass a law that will make it a jailable offense to take pictures or videos of an Israeli soldier abusing a Palestinian. And this bill was proposed by 4 members of Avigdor Lieberman's far-right Israel Beitenu party, and they're making it a crime, punishable by 5 years in prison. And if they can add on that the intent is to harm state security, the punishment doubles to 10 years in prison. And according to Haaretz, the bill is expected to gain the support of the entire government in a vote on Sunday. Now, there is a bit of a wrinkle, because Israel's Attorney General is saying that the bill in its current form will not pass constitutional muster. So we have one person who's standing up and saying, this is not really something that is right to do. But Israel apparently is panicking. They've got a PR disaster on their hands. I mean, Israel has been abusing the Palestinians for decades, but they got away with it because the rest of the world got a highly sanitized, filtered, manufactured image of poor, helpless Israel and those evil, mean Palestinians. And they worked hard to maintain that illusion, and that illusion is now gone. And Israel doesn't want to change their behavior. That would be tantamount to admitting that what they were doing was wrong, and Israel never admits that they do something that's wrong. So now they're trying to basically get control of the information. They want to basically bring down, if you will, a video curtain around Gaza and the West Bank, so that the corporate media can go back to selling the idea of poor, helpless Israel under existential threat from those mean, evil Palestinians. But the situation has reached a point where the Secretary General of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres, is saying this escalation of violence in Gaza is bringing Israel and Gaza to the brink of war. Now, that would be a bad thing because Gaza would certainly lose it. And in fact, it may be that Israel wants there to be a war if they can figure out a way to make it look like it's the Palestinians' fault. And we've seen over the past decades, every 3 to 5 years, Israel will gin up an excuse and just go on in and bomb the heck out of Gaza. Now, Guterres came on out and said that Israel's military has a responsibility to exercise maximum restraint, and that such violence, as we've seen, should only be a last resort if Israel is actually being threatened, which Israel's trying to claim, that the Palestinians along the fence, they're there with Hamas, they're going to rush the fence and kidnap Israeli soldiers. And no, the videos show they were out there with banners protesting for their right of return, which was guaranteed to them by the United Nations and agreed to by Israel as a condition of its membership in the United Nations. Now, as you know, Donald Trump has pulled the United States out of the United Nations Human Rights Council, screaming that it's biased against Israel because, I mean, come on, what nation isn't shooting its own civilians with these expanding bullets? And the rest of the world has absolutely condemned the United States for this. The EU has condemned the United States for pulling out of the Human Rights Council. China's condemned it. And I want to point out this utter hypocrisy here, because when the U.S. first went into Syria, they said the reason we have to go on in there is that Bashar al-Assad is killing his own people. He's killing civilians in his own country. And they've used that excuse other places. They used it in Iraq. And yet here we have Israel, where the government is killing their own civilians with these illegal bullets. And the U.S. response is, well, it's no big deal. You know, how dare the Human Rights Council make a big issue out of this? I mean, it's just not really a big deal. It's not worth talking about. But it certainly will end the United States' image as a champion of human rights around the world. We'll be right back.
Extendivite really works. Just listen to what some people have to say.
About 6 months ago, my wife bought Extendivite. She didn't tell me she was giving it to me. So after about 3 days, I said, maybe the weather's changed or something. I said, my legs feel really good. And she goes, well, I've been giving you this stuff. And it was the Extendivite. And you know that I'm about 75% better. I can actually climb stairs now, and I can get up out of chairs. I can even get down, and I got to work under a table or a computer table and work on a computer. I can actually get back up off the floor. You know what? It's an amazing product. I can't believe I didn't think anything short of having surgery was going to help.
Extendivite is only $69.95 for a 2-month supply of either capsules or liquid. Call now. That's 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
Folks, we're living in a world the likes of which we've never perceived any clearer than we do now. The plan for global governance has been in the works for generations and would have likely been achieved by now, but for the fact that the globalists left open their Achilles heel. With all their tools, Federal Reserve System, fiat currency, no child left behind, and then Common Core education introduced to our schools to dumb us down, vaccines, pharmaceuticals to lobotomize us, GMO foods, insertion of compromised or bought and paid for politicians, judges, mainstream media propaganda, all pieced together like a puzzle designed to ultimately bring the world under submission. But with all their strategy, they forgot one thing: knowledge. And knowledge is power. With knowledge, their bombardment is nullified. Folks, with that, as brilliant and knowledgeable as you've become, among the wisest audience of any radio audience in the world, and you are, I want you to take a moment to reflect and ask yourself, how much of that knowledge did I obtain from Republic Broadcasting Network? How high has my consciousness been raised since I've been a listener? How fast am I now able to discriminate truth from fake news by being a Republic Broadcasting listener? How clear am I now able to see the world since I've been listening to RBN? Ask yourselves those questions, folks. Then ask yourself, what is that knowledge worth to me? Like my morning coffee, how would I survive without it? A voice of truth in a sea of lies. Do we not all need to make sure it survives? Like public broadcasting, we are now finding we can only survive with listener support. Censorship, advertisers being attacked, truth itself being attacked. It's the only way through this. We at Republic Broadcasting humbly ask you to become a supporter. Look at your budget and make a determination of what Republic Broadcasting is worth to you and what you can afford on a monthly basis. Go to republicbroadcasting.org and pledge 20, 30, 40, 50, if possible, 100 a month or more if it's affordable. Click the donate button and become a regular monthly donor. Assure both us and yourself that Republic Broadcasting truth will continue to flow like that morning coffee. The network thanks you.
Well, they're stealing down on Wall Street and in Washington, too. You know, it makes me wonder, what's a guy on Main Street to do? I've always tried to be an honest, upstanding kind of guy. But I must admit lately, I thought about giving something else a try. Oh, I want to be a pirate. I want to sail the 7 seas, yeah, I want to be a pirate.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. So let's talk about the economic news, because along with the very real wars all over the globe, there is an economic war, a trade war, that is rapidly escalating. And the main theater of operation, if you will, is China. And as one side will do tariffs and then the other side responds, and then Trump adds more, and then China adds more. And it is escalating. And as a result, we've had rather rough times on the stock market. People are getting very nervous and very scared. The Dow ended in the red again today, not by that much, but it's still, I think, like the 7th consecutive day of drops here. China is cutting their U.S. investments by 92% because of the trade war. And Chinese investments totaled $1.8 billion from January through May, representing a 92% drop against the same period a year ago. That's the lowest level in 7 years. Now, one of the things that was operating here is that China was obviously making a huge amount of money off the American consumer, and then they would take that money and come back and they would make investments in the United States, in equities, real estate, but now they're pulling that out. And that may be one of the reasons why the stock markets are not doing well, along with investor nervousness here. Now, analysts are warning, in fact, one analyst, Nikita Maslenikov, is saying that a full-on trade war with China could push the United States into a recession as early as next year. That's absolutely right here. It's absolutely right. Meanwhile, you've got the Federal Reserve is basically trying to get inflation going again, to get the money out there again. And at one time, the Federal Reserve's mandate was to maintain stable prices and fight inflation. But it's evolved to a situation where the Fed and all other central bankers basically want there to be a little bit of inflation because it drives prices up. And mostly what it does is it brings up the amount of borrowing and they make more money. But according to this article that came on out from AntoniusAquinas.com, the Fed's inflation target is impoverishing American workers. And the way that is working is happening on several fronts. First of all, as this caller the other day was mentioning, prices go up, workers demand higher wages, they get the higher wages, this drives prices up, and it becomes a spiral. More importantly, while your paycheck may look bigger because you've gotten a raise, your actual purchasing power has stayed pretty much the same, but you get shoved into a higher tax bracket. Now, the economists can look at all their actuarial tables, but it really doesn't take a PhD to look around and realize that overall, with the exception of the money junkies, the standard of living for the American people has been in decline for decades. The millennials today, far from being able to enjoy the American dream of their parents and grandparents, can't even get out of the parents' home because of how bad the economy has become. The economy is being managed for the benefit of the money junkies. They may have just decided they can't save the system, and now they're just out to loot it and plunder as much as they can before it all comes falling apart. Story coming out of strategicculture.org talking about how Brussels is now rising in revolt against Washington. And a lot of this has to do with the tariffs and sanctions. It has a lot to do with the fact that the U.S. is trying to arm twist the EU into pulling out of the Iran deal. And apparently Brussels has just reached the point where they say, enough of this bullying, enough of us always following along with Washington, D.C. So U.S. influence around the world is already on the wane. And maybe that's the reason why U.S. foreign policy has devolved into this bullying attitude. Do what we say or bad things will happen to you. No more negotiation, no more diplomacy. Just basically thumping the chest and going on out and saying, we still have the world's mightiest military, at least in terms of the nuclear arsenal, so we're still king of the hill. But we're seeing countries all over the world straining at the leash, as it were. And that's another indicator of a potential Soviet-style collapse of the U.S. government, because the same thing was happening in ancient Rome. The provinces started pulling away. We'll be right back.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Homeowners, if your lender has gone out of business or sold your transaction to another lender or servicer, you may be the victim of a wrongful foreclosure, resulting in the loss of your home. If you've already lost your home, are in foreclosure, or even in good standing, you can challenge the mortgage transaction's illegal issue, and your property can be restored to you, and your foreclosure can be stopped or reversed, and the mortgage transaction declared unenforceable. State laws, U.S. title codes, the Uniform Commercial Codes, and U.S. Supreme Court rulings have upheld that defective mortgage documentations can reverse or stop foreclosures and enforce property title claims in favor of the homeowner. We are having successes in stopping the process of foreclosure, the enforcement of the foreclosure judgments, the sale of property, and evictions after the sale. We are not attorneys, and we don't give legal advice. We are a professional team of legal researchers, providing forensic mortgage audits and expert witnesses. We have the knowledge to produce the evidence and enforce laws regarding your legal issues. We've been in business for 12 years without a complaint. Consultations are free, and we provide a free title search to confirm if your mortgage has legal defects. Please call 855-253-3748. 855, keep it today.
I'm getting older and noticing that my body just doesn't work as well as it used to. So I like to keep fit as possible by hitting the gym a few times a week. Recently, I started having a nagging bicep pain, and it got so bad I couldn't even lift the weights. When I was complaining about it to a friend, he told me about Angioprim. He said chelation helps remove toxins, heavy metals, and cholesterol in veins and arteries that may cause blockages. You know, after just 1 week of taking Angioprim, the pain was gone, and now I'm back in the gym full strength. Scientific research proves the active ingredient in Angioprim has superior oral chelation action that helps promote cardiovascular health. So to learn more, go to angioprim.com. That's ANGIOPRIM.com, or talk to a trained consultant. Call Angioprim toll free at 877-882-7221. You'll feel better with more energy. Call 877-882-7221 or go to the website angioprim.com.
Without the right accessories, any guy can be off the mark. Whether you've invested thousands in your arsenal or you own a single trusted firearm, a visit to AROutfitting.com is in order. It's one of the finest online selections of tactical optics and AR parts and add-ons, like EOTech, quick target acquisition with no peripheral loss. Browse the full range of Nikon scopes and binoculars. AROutfitting.com can illuminate your world with Streamlight gun-mounted lights from keychain to large handhelds, up to 1,100 lumens. Find some stability with Battenfield tactical bipods. AROutfitting.com has CMMG gun parts, barrels, assemblies, handguards, part kits, and more. Plus mag-full clips and magazines. I know I've got you excited, so take a breath. Head to AROutfitting.com. The site's super easy to navigate and features a ton of technical info, including links to manuals. We also welcome vendor and manufacturer inquiries. Remember, if you don't see it, we can get it at AROutfitting.com.
We will not go down in the night without a fight. You can burn up our mosques and our homes and our schools, but our spirit will never die. We will not go down in Gaza tonight. Women.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show. And Fox News is actually running the story about how Representative Mark Meadows is suggesting or says that there are indications that some of the FBI's FD 302 forms were altered or tampered with during the Hillary email server investigation. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with the term, the FD 302 is an FBI agent's handwritten summary of an interview with a witness. And it's basically what the FBI agent thinks was said and thinks was done. And in a lot of cases, that may be the only record of an interview. They don't automatically tape record things, which is weird. If you think about journalists, unless somebody is really off the record, they'll have a tape recording to make sure that they get it right, but not the FBI. So Meadows is now saying that he thinks some of the FD 302s from interviews related to the investigation into the server may have been altered. So bit by bit, this is coming on out. All right, so let's get on back to the economic news. Having learned absolutely nothing from the subprime mortgage disaster, mostly because the American people paid the price for that one rather than the mortgage companies, subprime car loans are now back. And it's being driven again by the consumer economy's collapse. General Motors is like all the other automakers. They're having a tough time moving product. And the storage lots are filling up, and they don't know what they want to do. So apparently, GM is relaunching a credit unit. Now, back in 2010, General Motors spent $3.5 billion to purchase AmeriCredit, a subprime lending specialist. The unit is now called GM Financial. And this isn't the first time they did that. Way back before the financial crisis, there was General Motors Acceptance Corporation, or GMAC. And very often you would see on commercials for General Motors cars, GMAC financing available. But basically the goal here is to sell more cars by being willing to finance clients with spotty credit records. And of course the issue with that is that if those loans start to default, somebody somewhere is going to eat that. Now, over on the Dow, there's been a bit of an upset. General Electric is one of the companies that goes back to the very beginnings of the Dow Industrial Average. It's been one of the basket of companies that are used to basically come up with the health of the stock market. And over the years, companies have come and companies have gone. GE has always been there. Not anymore. GE is now being removed from the Dow Industrial Average and replaced with Walgreens. Now, obviously, it is in the interest of the Dow Jones Industrial Average to have companies that are doing really well to try and get that number back up there. But for General Electric to be taken off that is significant. Another icon falling behind the way. Starbucks, otherwise known as the world's biggest public toilet, their stock tumbled. They've announced 150 store closures. Remember back in the days when there was the running joke, a Starbucks on every corner, where you'd be in the middle of a city and there'd be a Starbucks on one corner of an intersection and you'd turn around and there'd be another Starbucks. Well, not anymore. That is going away. And whether it is because of the bad press or the recent issue with homeless coming on in and just hanging out, or the fact that ordinary consumers can no longer spend $5 on a cup of coffee. But Starbucks is now in serious, serious trouble. India has joined an international group that are dumping U.S. dollars in the oil trade in order to bypass the U.S. sanctions. And apparently, Washington, D.C., on top of being arrogant, on top of being a bully. They miscalculated. They're still living in a world where everybody is having to go through the dollar somewhere. And if you go through the dollar, you are therefore wide open to be sanctioned by the U.S. government through the SWIFT system. But some very wise and prudent people in other countries have been setting up parallel systems. And by simply not using the U.S. dollar, the sanctions can't be enforced anymore. So, over in Kyrgyzstan, they're dumping the dollar and buying a lot of gold. And they're concerned about a trade war between Beijing and Washington. And Kyrgyzstan is seeking to boost the share of gold in its $2 billion international reserves to 50% from its current 16%. And the Kyrgyz central bank governor, and I'm not even going to try and pronounce that, told Bloomberg the rules of the game are changing. It doesn't matter what currencies we have in our reserves. Dollars make us vulnerable. Meanwhile, South Korea is now talking about a railroad link to Russia through North Korea. Yet another indication of a potential reunification between North and South Korea. And this is going to make a lot of people very, very nervous because the other side of that coin would be China extending its One Belt, One Road project down into South Korea to those manufacturing areas to make it easier, cheaper, and faster to get those products to markets in Europe. This is a threat to nations with large shipping industries who don't want to see those large cargo container ships rusting away at a dock someplace. And it's for that economic reason that I think that efforts to reunify are going to be sabotaged, as they were about 6 years ago when the Koreas were talking reunification. So let's talk about migration. Let's talk about refugees. There's a lot going on there. And there's an article that came out of Europe Reloaded called Europe and the Migrant Wars. And they're saying that basically the only precedence for this kind of migration into Europe goes back to the 4th and 5th centuries AD, when people who were fleeing the Huns just poured into Europe. And that did not end well for the Roman Empire, ushering in centuries which were termed the Dark Ages. So that other individual the other day who said, it's not immigration, it's an invasion. Immigration has requirements. It has rules. What we're seeing now literally is a refugee invasion of Europe and the United States. And unfortunately, it's being encouraged by politicians who see this as necessary to hang on to power, like the Democrats, or to bring about the one world government. Now, as we mentioned before, there are an estimated 100,000 Muslim migrants en route to Western Europe, and countries along a new Balkan migrant route pledged on Thursday to work together to prevent a repetition of the 2015 influx that brought more than 1 million refugees into Europe from North Africa and the Middle East. So basically, Europe is starting to deploy armed forces. No matter what Brussels is saying, the individual member states of the European Union are working to close their borders. They can't take any more of these people in. It is a huge, huge drain on their already overstressed economy. There's the issue of the skyrocketing crime, rape, contagious diseases coming on in, and the fact that these refugees are not integrating into the community, but are trying to set up little carbon copies of their home countries in the middle of Europe, the no-go zones. Now, up in Sweden, which has been accepting huge amounts of refugees, very liberal, fully on board with the liberal agenda and the one world government, they're starting to falter as well, because there is a political party, the Sweden Democrats, that are far right, despite the name Democrats. They're anti-immigrant. They're starting to call for a referendum on EU membership. So now we've got a Swexit. Jimmy Åkesson, 39, branded the EU's large web of corruption and said Sweden should hold a referendum after the general elections this September. So it's all starting to come apart. Over in Hungary, Viktor Orban is praising Italy's Salvini and basically saying that these non-governmental organization crews are little more than white-collar human traffickers that for a fee are bringing people over and putting them into Europe. Now, Hungary is getting ready to criminally prosecute organizations that are supporting the migrants. It's like the U.S. Title VIII laws. Hungary is putting them in, saying that if somebody is helping these migrants get in and get through, there will be legal repercussions. Hungary is planning to introduce a 25% tax on aid groups supporting the immigrants. And even more draconian, Hungary has now approved their Stop Soros law, named for George Soros. And this is the law that is criminalizing aid to illegal migrants. Now, the law was voted on in the parliament earlier today and will likely be signed. But this refugee crisis, this is going to be the end of the EU experiment. Over in Germany, as you know, Angela Merkel is dealing with the Bavarian Revolution, if you will, where some of Germany's political parties who currently form part of her coalition government are now saying that unless she reverses her open border policy, they will leave the coalition. Merkel's government will come on down. There'll be snap elections, which Merkel is not likely to win. So she may be out of a job. Now, they did give her a 2-week window to try and find some kind of a solution across all of Europe. But according to the latest poll coming out of Germany, over 70% of the German citizens say that she's not going to be able to do that. They don't think that she can pull it off. And I'm in agreement because so many of the other countries in Europe are now saying they can't take any more of the refugees. Over in Italy, as you know, they just had a populist, Eurosceptic, anti-immigrant government come into power. And apparently much of the support for that is coming from the younger Italians. Apparently the youth are now becoming populists, at least in Europe. So the momentum is picking up. The momentum is picking up. Now, of course, the big problem is going to be, let's assume that the EU breaks up. The EU member nations go back to having secure, strong borders. What are they going to do with the refugees? Well, a lot of countries are already saying, send them back. You know, we don't want them. We don't need them. Most of them are unable to find work. Most of them don't even speak the indigenous language. It's just been an absolute disaster. And I wonder, I mean, if George Soros really comprehends or is even capable of comprehending the amount of damage he's done to Europe's infrastructure, to Europe's culture, to the European people, or maybe like any billionaire sociopath who dreams of a one-world government, he just doesn't care. That all this damage and destruction and the suffering and this pain and the rapes and the stabbings, it's a small price to pay for a one-world government. And I think George Soros has become one of the strongest arguments to limit how much wealth individuals can have. Because people get too much wealth, they can't resist playing God with the rest of the planet, or playing with Earth and its people like personal toys, whether it's George Soros or Bill Gates. Over in Great Britain, they're still going on about Brexit, and apparently there was yet another last-ditch effort to get the Parliament to have a meaningful vote on the final terms of the Brexit deal. That went down. So the Remainers are losing that one, and the British people are understandably getting very angry. After all, they expressed their will in the voting booths. They want out of the EU. And I imagine they are probably as angry with their government for ignoring them as Americans are angry with our government for ignoring us. So let's talk about that southern border and the immigration controversy. Donald Trump signed an executive action to keep families together who are arrested coming across that southern border, and thereby is yanking the rug out of this issue that the Democrats were using to try and distract from the Inspector General report. And he's signed the executive action, over and done with, except there is a small problem. I mean, never mind the additional cost of building facilities to hold all of these families. It's the fact that so many of these children are coming across the border unaccompanied. The other day we reported on how a lot of these kids are being used as drug mules. They get a backpack full of drugs, they get some money, they walk across the border, the drugs are delivered, and they're just there. They're still going to be kept in those child centers. And the other issue is that many of the children coming across with adults aren't really the children of the adults, which suggests that there's some human trafficking going on as well. We're going to take a break for commercials, and we will be back after these few words.
Corporate media dominates the American opinion. Finding independent voices that counter this avalanche is becoming increasingly difficult. With the endless corruption running rampant throughout our government, independent voices are needed more than ever to battle the offensive against our freedoms and liberties. As a listener of RBN, no one understands this concept better than you. Now it's up to you to do your part. The time has come for you to take action and begin broadcasting the truth to hundreds or thousands of people every month. Sound impossible? Quite the contrary. With pointed slogans from LibertyStickers.com, you can reach countless sleeping Americans unaware that they live in a real-life wonderland. LibertyStickers.com has a huge inventory of political bumper stickers and messages that reflect the truth about our government, our politicians, and the future of America. With so many in stock, there's one perfect for you. Visit us today at LibertyStickers.com. Again, that's LibertyStickers.com. Do your part. Your voice is important. Let it be heard.
Many people write us about their experience with Extendivite. Allow me to read you some from Amazon.com. It really does work like the review says it does. I cannot believe that after the first few days, I didn't feel as sluggish or clogged up. It has had a profound impact on my physical, emotional well-being. I'm skeptical as most people about products and their claims, and I never write reviews, but this is a wonderful product and I recommend it to everyone. Great product. It has brought my blood pressure from the mid-150s over the 80s to the mid-130s over mid-80s, along with diet and exercise in just the past couple of months. Excellent. Thank you, David. Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. Call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
Hi, folks. CBD is the home run hitter for health right now. Why, you ask? Because of what it does for the body. Unfortunately, I can't tell you all about the benefit. You know, there's reasons. Do your due diligence and log on to ancientlifeoil.com. That's ancientlifeoil.com. Ancient Life Oil uses organic ingredients and is blended in coconut oil for some of the best benefits. Legal in 50 states and non-psychoactive. Log on to ancientlifeoil.com. That's ancientlifeoil.com.
Do you worry a lot? Whether you're a college student, busy professional, parent, or grandparent, ongoing stress and elevated levels of the stress hormone cortisol can rob your memory, your health, and your future. Now you can combat the effects of stress and anxiety while improving your memory and recall at the same time with the dietary supplement Calm and Clever. Studies show that the ingredients in Calm and Clever reduce cortisol by as much as 30% in 1 to 2 weeks. Call 1-800-758-8746 or calmandclever.com.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero. Join Mike on the air. Call toll-free 800-313-9443. 800-313-9443.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. We're talking about the immigration controversy. Again, this separating of children from their parents goes all the way back to the Bush administration. And the reasoning is very simple. If you go into a convenience store and you rob it and you are arrested for committing a crime, you are going to prison. And they're not going to let you take your kids with you because prison is a very dangerous place for children to be. And so that's what's been going on. But the Democrats are out there trying to make it look like this was Trump's idea to do it, because he's trying to crack down on illegal immigration. And again, as we saw in yesterday's hearing for the IG report, they want to distract from the IG report. They tried to hijack the hearing. Now, something that happened yesterday, and I think this is a really good idea, Trump is saying that he will authorize the cancellation of U.S. financial aid to every nation that is sending illegal immigrants. In other words, if they don't close their borders and stop this flood of illegals infiltrating America, they're going to be cut off. No more checks from Uncle Sam, meaning no more checks from your wallet. And I think that's a really, really good idea. Now, there's another case. This I was mentioning this before. This is over in Breitbart. There was a migrant woman who was arrested coming across the border with children, and it turned out the 3 children were not her own. And this may be the reason why Sessions was out there saying maybe it's time for DNA tests. But the real solution is we just got to close the border. And people who want to come to this country have to come in through the legal immigration process. And there's a great deal of hypocrisy over this whole issue. Remember about earlier in the week, the Democrats were out there literally saying that Donald Trump was putting children in extermination centers. Well, isn't that what Planned Parenthood is? And the corporate media is expressing all of this outrage over the border crisis. But so far, we're not seeing a lot of reporting about child trafficking, rape, and murder of American kids in this country. They always sit on it. Remember the Franklin scandal? That one reached all the way up to the White House, and the corporate media just shut that one down here. Now, you've probably seen this photo. It's been going viral. It's about this cute little boy, and he's very obviously in a cage, and it's been going around saying, this is what Trump is doing. This is what Trump is doing. Well, it turns out the photo is actually from a staged protest where a bunch of people set up a cage, and they got into it with this kid, arguing for open borders and unrestricted influx of immigrants. And the picture was taken there. It was not, in fact, taken at one of the child centers. Right now, it's estimated that the Trump administration could be holding 30,000 border kids by August. We're going to take a break for station identification. Back with hour number 3 after these few words.
Did you know that neither the American Medical Association nor the American Bar Association were established to benefit the American people? Have you recognized that in our country, healthcare has little to do with health, and that our court system has nothing to do with justice? The priests of both medicine and law have been incentivized to implement a dark agenda on behalf of the Bilderbergers and their ilk. To protect ourselves and our progeny, we need to take a much closer look at how these two giant industries really work. Join me, Al Whitney, on In Defense of Humanity, Saturdays at 7 p.m. Central, as we expose the matrix and learn how not to consent to our own destruction.
This is RBN, the Republic Broadcasting Network.
What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero, the history the government hopes you never learn. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show, hour number 3. We're going to go right to the phones. Mark in North Carolina, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, hi, Mike. Mike, a couple of things. You mentioned Congressman Meadows. That's my congressman over here.
Okay.
In North Carolina.
Yep.
And I called him. As a matter of fact, I called him just early, actually yesterday. I spoke to one of his flunkies. But I told the flunky what we need to do is we need to not only, curb the FBI, we need to disband them. And I also talked about the border. What we need to do in that border is we need to bring our troops home from 4 corners of the world, stop protecting other people's borders, and protect the United States borders in this country.
I absolutely
agree. I don't know
agree.
how many other people fall.
I don't think putting the Army on the U.S. national border would violate posse comitatus.
I don't either. It's a military function. It really is.
Yes.
You could use the Border Patrol, with left of the Border Patrol, as to enforce internal immigration laws, But as far as the border goes, that is a military function. It's not the Border Patrol is doing something in the military right now. They're protecting the United States, period.
Yes.
The military is not protecting the United States by protecting Israel's borders, Saudi Arabia's borders, and causing havoc in Yemen, putting troops in Syria without their permission. We're not protecting anybody in the United States, or even NATO being hassling the Russians there on their borders. Okay, and they're not protecting the United States. I don't know who they're protecting. They're protecting the New World Order globalists.
They're protecting the billionaires' investments.
And there's another thing about Soros. Yeah, I'm sorry, what?
I was going to say, there was this wonderful song by Jackson Browne called Lives in the Balance, and it was actually used as a soundtrack on the original Miami Vice for the episode called Stone's War. And you can find videos of it at YouTube. Again, it's called Lives in the Balance, Jackson Browne. And if you haven't heard it, you ought to take a listen.
Yeah, I got to listen to it. Check it out on YouTube, I guess. Or on Spotify. Another thing is, as far as George Soros goes, Soros, it's very, it's clear to me who Soros really is. He is part of, like you said, the New World Order, the globalists, the Illuminati, whatever you want to call them today. Okay, he is the Rothschild banks, whatever. He is their disperser. He's their money man. He goes around distributing money to radicals, and not necessarily just communist radicals, left-wing radicals. Because in the Ukraine, he distributes Nazi, to actual fascists and Nazis. He's trying to cause nothing but turmoil wherever he goes. Revolutions, rebellions all over the world, then refugees, then these refugees go into other countries and cause problems, and these other countries go to turmoil. That's what Soros is doing.
Yes.
He is basically distributing the money. He's to disperse, what do you call it?
The paymaster.
I guess you could say.
The bag man.
Yeah, exactly. He's the paymaster for the globalists, people laugh when you say Illuminati. But what is Illuminati? Illuminati is basically the New World Order, the globalists, or whatever else. And they go back to the 1700s. I forget the name of the guy who started it in Germany. And they were also, the Rothschilds are very influential within the Illuminati. And, and the big banks are very influential through the Illuminati. That's all it is. It may be a secret organization, but it's not that secret. And there's no question what they want. They want control. They want control of this whole globe. They want to do away with, I think, the majority of the population on top of it. They have this dream that robots are going to run things, and they'll run the robots, and that we are going to come under it, and we're going to be nothing but basically slaves. And as you can see, the Georgia Guidestones, I'm sure you know what that is.
Yeah, I'm very familiar with those.
Reduced to human population. That's all they are. That's all they are. If people got, there was a very good. If you go to YouTube, there's a very good. You could look it up too. Search engine, and look up a guy named Myron Fagel, or something like that. This guy back in the 1960s pretty much laid the whole thing open. He pretty much described right there in 1967 what it was. It's an excellent. It's really an excellent video. He described exactly what these people are and what they're trying to do back in '67 already. Mm-hmm. And I think that people should go to turn to him. By the way, people say, when you talk about the Rothschilds, anti-Semites and everything like that. Well, this guy Fagel, I looked it up. He's Jewish himself. Okay, as a matter of fact, he even talked with kind of like one of these Jewish type accents. Like even though I understand he's from the United States, he probably grew up in that kind of a household. Okay, where they spoke like that and he had that kind of accent. Okay,
yes.
100% pure patriot, told the absolute truth, what is going on in this world. He named names. He showed how, for instance, Trotsky was helped by Adam Schiff, by Jacob Schiff,
yes,
who I believe is probably related somehow to Adam Schiff. How Jacob Schiff actually had him in his house here in New York City, and actually helped get him to first to Switzerland, and then along with Lenin, got him into Russia to help overthrow the Tsar. He had a really in for the Tsar. Didn't like Russia, period. He thought it would be a good thing to push the commies on them, and he used Trotsky for that. Trotsky and I guess Lenin also. This comes from this guy Myron. He actually spells it out. So, folks, if you want to look up something good, look up Myron. Fagel, something like that. Michael Fagin, not Michael. Myron Fagin. Look him up. I'm telling you, it's an incredible video. This man was a patriot of the first order, and he spelled it out exactly what these people are about. Period. So that's pretty much all I got to say, Mike.
All right. Well, the reality is throughout history, there have always been groups or individuals who want to rule the entire planet, more for the ego boost than anything else. Certainly the case with Alexander the Great or Genghis Khan or any of these other conquerors. It seems to be an instinct to want to acquire more than you really need to be happy. And it's one of the great faults in the human psyche, if you will. But we're seeing, again, yet another push by these globalists for a one-world government. And they're caught up in this fantasy that it will be a utopian society, which it certainly will be for them. But it really won't be all that great for everybody else. And again, going back to the example of Alexander the Great, he's actually glorified in movies and television. about, that he conquered all these places and he did these wonderful works and everything. But the reality is that the ordinary people of every one of those conquered countries were subjected to hideous amounts of oppression, and they were ultimately the ones who had to pay for all the things that Alexander was building. And so it is a repeating aspect of history, and it is something that's wrong with the human psyche. But again...
Yeah, well, Alexander the Great didn't want to turn himself into a robot, okay, and think he's going to rule the world like that and destroy most of the world's population. These people are especially evil and crazy today, what they want to do. That's the difference.
Well, again, if they're in their little palace there, wherever they're going to build it, surrounded by a bunch of robots, and the rest of the planet is empty, there's not really much point. Obviously, that the greater the Earth's population, then the greater they're going to see their power and control is. Anyway, Mark, we're going to let you go here. Thank you very much for the phone call. And we're going to do a shout out now to our on-air affiliates who are just now rejoining our network. And we're still talking about the immigration issue at the border. And apparently during her press conference yesterday, the Secretary of Homeland Security basically made a point of telling the assembled reporters that a large percentage of the children who were separated from the adult they were traveling with were not the child of that adult. They were being trafficked. But of course, the liberals don't want to hear that. They want to push this idea, oh, Donald Trump is separating the families, ignoring the fact that it was happening all during Obama's time in office, going all the way back to Bush. And they're just out there playing politics. Get it out there. Doesn't matter if it's true. Doesn't matter if it's right. Just get it out there first and get ahead of the other side here. But again, I want to point out that the blame for all of this issue about child separation does not lie with Donald Trump, but with those adults who walk across that border illegally with children. It's their fault. Now, the reality is, contrary to the horror stories that the Democrats have been putting out about how badly the separated children are being treated, the reality is the U.S. government is spending a lot of money taking care of these kids. And the migrant children who cross into the United States have a nearly 3 times higher standard of living when in federal custody than the average middle-class American child. They're being well taken care of. They're getting a better deal from the government than your kids are. All right, we're going to take another phone call here from Brent in Wisconsin. Aloha, Brent. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yes, thank you, Michael, and good afternoon. I'm sick to death of hearing about these children that are being, it's almost like they're being kidnapped. But, this has been going on for many, many years. Just talk to some of our ancestors, the white and red men that were here, if we could, 100 or 200 years ago, and we'd see plenty of that going on.
Well, there have been abuse of children by institutions throughout history, the resident schools up in Canada, and you're right, as part of the Americanization of the West, Native American children were removed from the tribes and put in English language schools and taught to wear American clothes and so forth. And it's basically a way of trying to erase a culture and forcibly integrate everybody together. But I really want to stay in the here and now as to what's going on. And the issue here isn't that these kids are being kidnapped. As I mentioned before, if you commit a crime and you are arrested and you go to jail, they don't let you take your children with you because jail is a very dangerous place for children to be. And that is just absolute common sense. And that's the reason why these children were being basically separated from the parents, because the parents are going to jail. They crossed the border illegally. They've been arrested. They're going to jail to await deportation. Apparently, there's a very long process that they have to go through, which I think Trump ought to just speed that up. You're here illegally? Okay, you're going back. 24-hour turnaround at best. Then you wouldn't have to worry about the children being separated.
Okay, let's take a look at here and now. If you and your wife have an argument and you have children and one of you calls the police, somebody from that family is going to jail. And when the police come over and they look around your home and they find a joint or what looks like seeds or God knows what all they can dream up, then the other parent's going to jail as well. And where do the kids go? To a foster home with a bunch of homosexuals or something.
You're mixing apples and oranges here. The two issues are nothing at all alike. And a lot of people have arguments. It doesn't necessarily involve the police. I understand where you're coming from on this, but it's a very poor analogy. Anyway, Brent, thank you very much for the phone call. We're going to let you go. Now, over at the New York Times, Ann Coulter is out there saying that, of course, the left are using the children to push the open border agenda. And yes, they are. The Democrats are desperate to flood this country with as many illegal immigrants as they can in order to register them to vote for the midterms this November and the big election in 2020. And the fact that it's illegal for these people to be here in the first place and it's illegal for them to vote is apparently irrelevant to the Democrats' desperation to regain control of Congress and the White House in order to bring about their liberal utopian vision, which so far is falling flat on its face here. Meanwhile, we have mothers of children, mothers of American children, killed by illegal aliens, and they're on the warpath, saying that the corporate media is, they're being hypocrites, to show all this sympathy for these kids who crossed into this country illegally with their parents, while at the same time, the stories of illegal aliens killing American kids don't get a lot of exposure. Again, because they're trying to push the open border agenda here. Now, Donald Trump, when he signed that executive order, he followed it up by saying Congress has to pass legislation. Now, he took Schumer's dare to use his pen, but he's not going to be goaded into doing something where the Democrats can turn around and say he's acting like a dictator again, even though he gave the Democrats supposedly what they wanted. So Trump is out there saying Congress has to pass laws that allow the U.S. to deport children and families together. Now, this is the gauntlet in the face of the open border people, because one of the issues that came from the separation of children was that the parents would be deported back, the children would still be here. And in theory, at some point, be allowed into one of these programs, like what was it, the bill that said the children of the illegal immigrants could stay and work toward becoming citizens. But Trump is right. Grab the families all as a unit and just send them back. And Donald Trump is out there reiterating the Democrats want more illegal immigrants as potential voters, and that is a big part of what's going on here. And we notice that the Democrats and the liberals are still humming and whistling and looking at the ceiling whenever anybody brings up the child migrant detentions that took place during the entire Obama administration. And apparently there was a civil rights attorney who asked President Obama to close the migrant baby jails back in 2015. And Obama refused. And all the liberal Democrats can do is keep cranking up the hysteria, their concentration camps, their extermination centers. Because again, they can't win the argument on the facts and the logic. What they want is illegal, and most Americans understand that. So all they do is they scream racist and shout hysterically about concentration camps and just make as much of a ruckus as they can. All right, let's see. We've got another phone call. Bob in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Good afternoon, Michael. I may be a little harsh here, but, it comes down to the point that all these protesters and all the rest of that produce absolutely nothing that anybody needs. They don't even produce the cardboard that they're scribbling on their own signs.
Which protesters are you talking about?
All of them.
Okay.
Yeah. Anybody that's got time to be out protesting, I'm telling you, Michael, they're not out in the field producing anything.
You are being a little overly harsh because a lot of people have flexible work schedules which allow them to take part in protests, and a lot of protests take place on weekends outside work hours. So I think you're being a little unfair. Thank you for the phone call. We're going to let you go and take a break. Take a break for commercials. We'll be right back.
My name is Don Wiskin, and at 42 years old, I suffered a massive heart attack, lost 35% of my heart to damaged tissue, and was supposed to spend the rest of my life on disability. What did I do? I took Extendivite, a garlic and cayenne mix of 7 herbs which rebuilt my heart and gave me back my life. For over 17 years now, I have made this formula available to you, so you don't have to suffer the same thing I did. Clean your blocked arteries and strengthen your heart and boost your natural immune system. I'm 60 years old now, and I still work every day. To get your Extendivite, call 1-877-928-8822. That's 1-877-928-8822, or visit heartdrop.com. Extendivite is only $69.95 for a 2-month supply of either capsules or liquid.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
Folks, we're living in a world the likes of which we've never perceived any clearer than we do now. The plan for global governance has been in the works for generations and would have likely been achieved by now, but for the fact that the globalists left open their Achilles heel. With all their tools, Federal Reserve System, fiat currency, no child left behind, and then Common Core education introduced to our schools to dumb us down, vaccines, pharmaceuticals to lobotomize us, GMO foods, insertion of compromised or bought and paid for politicians, judges, mainstream media propaganda, all pieced together like a puzzle designed to ultimately bring the world under submission. But with all their strategy, they forgot one thing: knowledge. And knowledge is power. With knowledge, their bombardment is nullified. Folks, with that, as brilliant and knowledgeable as you've become, among the wisest audience of any radio audience in the world, and you are, I want you to take a moment to reflect and ask yourself, how much of that knowledge did I obtain from Republic Broadcasting Network? How high has my consciousness been raised since I've been a listener? How fast am I now able to discriminate truth from fake news by being a Republic Broadcasting listener? How clear am I now able to see the world since I've been listening to RBN? Ask yourselves those questions, folks. Then ask yourself, what is that knowledge worth to me? Like my morning coffee, how would I survive without it? A voice of truth in a sea of lies. Do we not all need to make sure it survives? Like public broadcasting, we are now finding we can only survive with listener support. Censorship, advertisers being attacked, truth itself being attacked. It's the only way through this. We at Republic Broadcasting humbly ask you to become a supporter. Look at your budget and make a determination of what Republic Broadcasting is worth to you and what you can afford on a monthly basis. Go to republicbroadcasting.org and pledge 20, 30, 40, 50, if possible, 100 a month or more if it's affordable. Click the donate button and become a regular monthly donor. Assure both us and yourself that Republic Broadcasting truth will continue to flow like that morning coffee. The network, thank you.
What this country is coming to, I sure would like to know. If they don't do something by and by, the rich will live and the poor will die. Doggone, I mean the panic is on. or no pay. Unemployment.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to the show. And we're still talking about the immigration issue and how desperate the Democrats are to flood this nation with illegal immigrants who will then illegally vote for the Democrats who brought them on in. And leading the charge for the open borders, of course, is Dianne Feinstein. But it's rather interesting. Back in 1994, she had a somewhat different opinion. Quote, "I think we can enforce our borders. I think we should enforce our borders. Illegals are leeches," end quote. That's from Dianne Feinstein. Meanwhile, Trump is out there saying that he's not going to allow the United States to become a migrant camp. Now, Jeff Sessions has come on out and said the solution is easy. Build the wall and we won't face these terrible choices. Even without the wall, just start enforcing Title VIII. Start jailing all the mayors and governors of these so-called sanctuary cities. Start arresting owners of businesses who give employment to illegals. Just enforce the law. Cut off that financial incentive to come here. Now, unfortunately, that's not going to stop, the drug smugglers who are operating outside that system. But yeah, we've got to have the wall. We've got to close the border. We have every right to close the border. If you don't have borders, you don't have a nation. And I'm sure that's a big part of the globalist philosophy, to just chip away at the borders until the nations themselves are gone. Meanwhile, former House Freedom Caucus Chairman Jim Jordan is out there saying that the proposed Ryan amnesty bill is inconsistent with the Trump election mandate because, as you know, Trump campaigned on getting immigration under control. And a lot of people voted for him on that issue. Well, there is a bill being proposed in Congress, which would be one of the most sweeping amnesty bills ever passed. Just, you're here, you're all going to be amnestied. And the bill is written very poorly. It just says amnesty. There's some talk about some kind of enforcement, but there's no part in there about having to prove a legal right to work in this country. It's just another giveaway. The Democrats are taking something which does not belong to them, the United States of America, and they're bartering it away for votes. Because this nation, the United States of America, is our collective heritage. We, the people who for over 200 years built this nation up with our labor. I remember back when Obama was out there saying, "You didn't do that," was trying to say the government was responsible for everything. No, the government is not responsible for everything. This nation, the United States, was built by the American people, and the American people own it. And government does not have the right to just give it away or barter it away, or politicians and parties don't have a right to barter it away. Speaking of Title VIII violations, the Democratic governors of Colorado, New York, and Virginia, and the Republican governors of Maryland and Massachusetts are all refusing to deploy their National Guard to the border. So they're just giving the country away here. By the way, speaking of illegals, a Honduran national in the United States illegally has been charged with killing 2 women in Miami over the past 3 months and then just dumping their bodies on the streets. Juan Carlos Hernandez Caceres, my mistake, was arrested Saturday morning for the murders of Anne Farron, 41, and Needy Roche, 39. Both women were prostitutes, and apparently he was engaging them as prostitutes, and then for some reason, during the act, as it were, he became enraged and attacked them. Now, this next story, I'm appalled at this behavior. We have yet another has-been actor, Peter Fonda, who came on out with this tweet We should rip Barron Trump from his mother's arms and put him in a cage with pedophiles and see if mother will then stand up against the giant blank hole she is married to. 90 million people in the streets on the same weekend in the country, followed by another obscenity. We should hack this system, get the addresses of the ICE agents, CBP agents, and surround their homes in protest. We should find out what schools their children go to and surround the schools in protest. Needless to say, Peter Fonda has now been reported to the Secret Service protective detail, as well he should. Now, one of the rules that we follow here at whatreallyhappened.com, and we have since the very beginning, when you disagree with the adults, you talk to the adults. You don't involve the kids. All right, we're going to take another break for commercials, and we'll be right back.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Do you or a loved one suffer migraine headaches? Listen to what scientist Kurt Hendricks has to say.
35 million people in the United States suffer with debilitating migraines. If you or a loved one are one of them, you need to know about MigraLief. Hi, I'm Kurt Hendricks, the scientist that formulated and patented the MigraLief migraine formula. MigraLief is a non-prescription dietary supplement recommended by neurologists, pharmacists, and pediatricians to address nutritional deficiencies in both adults and children over 2 with migraines. Try MigraLief for 3 months and see the powerful difference it can make in your life, or get your money back, no questions asked. Go to MIG911.com or call 800-MIG-7354. You can change your life today.
So if you suffer from migraines, don't wait. Call 800-MIG-7354. That's 800-MIG-7354 or visit MIG911.com.
Tired of being lied to by mass media? It's growing more and more apparent today that news is received less and less through standard media outlets. Even with a growing audience every day, RBN is beginning to direct more efforts into social media. Social media and the use of the internet is fast becoming the primary source of people for news, regardless of demographic. RBN has set out to provide some of the best news on the internet through republicbroadcasting.org, and also has begun to use the tools to our advantage by way of social media. Republic Broadcasting is now operating a Facebook page to function as yet another avenue to have our collective voice reach new audiences across not only America, but across the globe as well. The Facebook page features not only news, but also an RBN player to listen to our broadcasts. Get involved by visiting facebook.com/Republic Broadcasting and liking our page and share it with your friends and family, because you can handle the truth.
Many people tell us about their experience with Extendivite. Just listen to what Glenn has to say.
Prior to taking it, I had diabetic neuropathy. The Extendivite reduced that significantly. Acid reflux was reduced. I had athlete's foot, very severe. Trimmed that down to about 75% dandruff, almost completely gone. I had occipital neuralgia at the base of my skull. I was having migraines, reduced by about 90%. Heart palpitations, my heart would kind of stall out. I would skip a beat. Very uncomfortable. And when walking from downstairs going to sleep, by the time I got to the bedroom, which is just one flight of stairs, my heart was pounding, coming out of my chest. My vision was blurry. This completely solved that problem. Great product. Thanks.
Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. Call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
Some are maxed out all their credit cards. Some are working 2 jobs and living in cars. Minimum wage won't pay for a roof, won't pay for a drink. If you gotta have proof, just try it yourself, Mr. CEO. See how far $5.15 an hour will go. Take a part-time job at one of your stores. I bet you can't make it here anymore.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. We're talking about the immigration controversy, and we're talking about some of the behavior of the liberals. And I don't think they understand the optics when they come on out and shout profanities at the First Family, when Peter Fonda comes on out and talks about snatching Barron away from Melania. I mean, is this what liberalism has sunk to? Hysterics and tantrums if they don't get what they want. Well, apparently over at Congressman Brian Mast's office, an intern answered the phone, and the caller said, I'm going to find the congressman's kids and kill them. If you're going to separate kids at the border, I'm going to kill his kids. Don't try to find me because you won't. And then they did. Man's name is Lawrence Key, and he's facing charges, obviously. Apparently this Key has called Mast's office 478 times and also contacted Marco Rubio and Bill Nelson. And apparently he is an activist. So, again, liberals need to step back and take a look at how this is going to be perceived, how this kind of behavior is going to be perceived by the American public in general. You know, we want what we want, and if we don't get it, we're going to kill your kids. I'm absolutely appalled. Whether it's this Key, whether it's Peter Fonda, whether it's Samantha Bee, whether it's Kathy Griffin. They're making liberalism look bad. They're destroying their own political ideology. I remember when I was a kid where the liberals held themselves up as an intellectual elite that were going to win the debate with logic and thoughtfulness and good planning. Not anymore. They're a bunch of screaming children with bubble wrap and Play-Doh. It's absolutely disgusting. You know, my policy, hands off the kids. You don't involve the kids. You don't involve the families. You don't do that. Barron, as far as I can tell, is a nice kid. You leave him alone. In fact, I'll be honest, I'd rather meet Barron than Donald. That's another issue entirely. All right, now, James Wood, and I almost feel bad for the guy because throughout his career, he's played more negative, villainous characters, and it's not really him. He's highly intelligent. And anyway, he came on out with this brilliant response to Hillary's faux outrage over Trump's immigration policy, forgetting that it was Obama's immigration policy and Bush's immigration policy. But, oh no, this is Trump. This is just outrageous. And James Wood came back and said, now do Haiti. Occupy Wall Street put out a tweet including a graphic suggesting that ICE agents should be stabbed and their hearts ripped out and put on display. All right, we're going to take a phone call from Philip in Virginia. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Aloha, Mike. What's on my mind is the facilitators of all of this deranged attitude and behavior and comments such as the one that came out from Mr. Fonda there. Donald Trump was right, even if you quote him correctly about the media, when he said the fake news is the enemy of the people. And
yes.
They reported that falsely, and they left out the fake news part and said that he was attacking the media, and they said that he said the media is the enemy of the people.
Well, actually,
they're proving
he was.
That
He actually was, because the corporate media is the enemy of liberty and freedom in this country, because it is a giant propaganda machine serving political and corporate interests. And so whether they misquoted him or not, that was definitely Trump's intention. And the corporate media is doing a disservice to the public, which is why I've been doing what I'm doing for nearly a quarter of a century now.
Yeah, absolutely. You're absolutely right. And, I'm sick and tired of these hypocrite liars, whether it's a political party using the media to try and get their way, trying to make, a dramatic statement and then get us to backtrack on what we're saying, even though it's true, like Trump said, the media is the enemy of the public, the people. And just, you need to remember this, folks. Possibly you could help me determine which one of these terms applies to the mass media. Would you consider them to be the fourth estate or the fifth column? The definition,
that's actually a very good question, and I would say because there's definitely a blending of the two.
Yeah, and if you read the definition of these two entities, they are an enemy, and that's exactly what the media is acting like. The fourth estate is a segment of society that wields an indirect but significant influence on society, even though it is not a formally recognized part of the political system. The fifth column is any group of people who undermine a larger group from within, usually in favor of an enemy group or nation, and their activities can be overt or clandestine.
Well, that sounds like AIPAC to me.
Yeah, that's appropriate to application, for that group. But just remember, folks, that the media is the driving force behind all of this Trump derangement syndrome. That's getting people to come out and make these ridiculous statements, like Fonda, or going to these restaurants. I'd like to know who went, how they found out that the director of the HHS was there at that restaurant.
Well, it turns out that the leader of this group that went into the restaurant and harassed her is Allison Hrabar, and she is an employee at the Department of Justice. And this action on her part may violate Department of Justice bias rules. And the question now is, did she have some kind of access to Nielsen's schedule in order to set this up?
That sounds like some criminal behavior there.
And again, the optics are just terrible on this thing, because the open borders people cannot win the open borders argument with the facts and the logic and the law. The law is against them. The facts are against them. Everybody looks around and sees the damage that the illegal immigrants and the refugees are causing here and in Europe. And so all they can do is fall back and say, give us what we want, or we're going to scream at you, we're going to yell at you, we're going to threaten your children's lives.
Yep. Well, and I just remembered, that whenever we see a big-time propaganda campaign going on like this, it's always a multifaceted operation. They want to accomplish a lot of things in it, and I think you already mentioned this. One of them, this is a great diversion away from the IG report, where it revealed, that Obama lied about his knowledge of the server and just, all of that stuff associated with the email situation. It is appalling. Just like you said about Fonda's comment, I find what the media has been doing is just as appalling, and it is beyond comprehension. I just can't see how these people are getting away with, just outright lying with all of these made up stories. And, like Melania was not happy in the White House, and she was recovering from surgery and all that, and they were concocting and fabricating, false narratives about that. I mean, just
and
never stops.
That's another example of what I was talking about. Melania, when she's dealing with a medical issue, should be off limits to any responsible journalist. Okay? Yes, she's ill, she's doing well, and you stop there, and you don't speculate past that. That's inappropriate. To my mind, that's inappropriate behavior.
Well, what I've been doing is whenever I come in contact with somebody and I can detect their outright animosity towards Trump, I didn't even vote for the man. I'm just an objective observer.
Yes.
And I see what's going on. And I tell him, hey, you need to go to the doctor and get that TDS checked out, man. This Trump derangement syndrome
this TDS, it's organized. It's not a grassroots movement. You basically have the Hollywood liberal establishment is out there pushing people to say we got to get Trump because first of all, he's a Republican. That's strike one against him. He's a populist. That's strike two. And he's a nationalist. That's strike three. And that's why you have people like Robert De Niro standing up at the Tony Awards screaming, "Blank you Trump" twice and getting a standing ovation. But it's a small, little, tiny group that is using their celebrity status to go on out and make these outrageous statements. And frankly, I got to be very honest. I think the Secret Service ought to give Peter Fonda a good dressing down on this. That was wholly inappropriate for him to say. I'm angry on behalf of the Trump family that this sort of thing happened to him, to them.
I was just sad that Melania had to call the Secret Service and Trump didn't.
Well,
Donald should have did that.
Somebody should have called the Secret Service. That was way out of line, what Peter Fonda said. That was just totally out of line. He's an actor. Absolutely. He's a has-been actor, as opposed to me. I'm not a has-been. I'm a never was.
Well, just remember, folks, before I go, that our enemy is defined. Take your pick: fourth estate or fifth column. They are the enemy of the public.
They certainly are. They are the handmaidens of the money junkies and the power seekers and the corporations. Thanks an awful lot. We're going to let you go.
All right. Thank you.
Do you remember Danny Williams? Danny Williams has long claimed to be the son of Bill Clinton by Bobby Ann, a former prostitute that Bill Clinton did business with back in Little Rock back in 1984. Bill Clinton, of course, has always denied it. At one point, they claimed there was a DNA test that exonerated Bill Clinton. It turned out there was, in fact, no such DNA test. Danny Williams has been asking for one, for a paternity test, for a long time. But right now, he's out there basically slamming Bill Clinton for his supposed compassion for the immigrant children separated from their parents at the border while abandoning his own son. And of course, hypocrisy, thy name is Democrat. Okay, getting on out to some other stories here before the end of the show. As you know, Israel won the Eurovision Song Contest and has a right to host the next Eurovision Song Contest. And a lot of people are out saying they're going to boycott it. They're not going to take part because of what Israel is doing to the Palestinians. And somebody put up an online poll at one of the British newspapers. And initially the poll was showing overwhelming support for a boycott of Israel's Eurovision. And then partway through the day, something weird began to happen. And the poll began to shift back toward the other direction about, no, you should not boycott Israel's Eurovision. And everybody was wondering what was happening, and they were accusing the newspaper of rigging their own poll, and the newspaper said it wasn't us. And then apparently the managers of Israel's ACT-IL application took credit for manipulating the poll in Israel's favor. Now, this ACT-IL is an app that goes on the phone of Israel's supporters. It's an Israel government-backed smartphone app that directs users to take actions online to make it Israel has much more grassroots support than it actually does. Israel will send out these text messages to the app, which will say, log in here and do this, call in there, scream anti-Semite at this person. It's a very well-funded, highly organized system. And ActIL may have actually shot themselves in the foot by going public with this, because first of all, Israel doesn't want the public to know that social media is being manipulated with an organized propaganda campaign. And it's triggered a backlash because, as you know, Eurovision is decided with voting and by the public. And it's raised the question, could Israel have cheated the Eurovision Song Contest to win it using this application? It's an interesting possibility. Up in Canada, and it's amazing that this is still going on. Apparently, Israel's Supreme Court has ruled that LGBT rights have a higher priority than religious beliefs. This is a continuation of this liberal thing that LGBT people can go into places of business whose owners have certain religious beliefs and force them to do business that is contrary to their beliefs. And Canada's Supreme Court agreed. And this is going to backflash on the LGBT community, and I'll tell you why. It's one thing to say we want to be accepted. Yeah, we accept you. Fine. You live your lives, we live our lives, we're going to be fine. But now they're getting confrontational, and they're getting aggressive, and they're trying to force themselves into places where they really shouldn't be going. They've lost that sense of live and let live. And it's going to backfire. You're going to see a new rise of anti-LGBT sentiment, not over the fact that they're LGBT, but over this behavior. And again, it's liberalism at work. Give us what we want, or we're going to throw a tantrum, or we're going to take you to court, or we're going to get the laws changed. You do what we want you to do. Forget about what you want to do. Forget about your core beliefs. They don't matter. All that matters is the liberal utopia which we are here to enforce. All right, we're going to take a break for commercials, and we'll be back with the last segment of our program today after these few words.
Homeowners, are you in foreclosure, expecting to be served with a foreclosure lawsuit, or suspect your lender has coerced you into an illegal mortgage transaction? A huge number of mortgages made in the last 10 years have legal issues and are possibly defective. State laws and the U.S. Supreme Court have upheld that defective mortgage documents are grounds for foreclosure defense and for counterclaims in favor of the homeowner. If your mortgage has been sold or assigned since closing the loan, it may be defective and you may be paying the wrong party, and the lender may not have standing or the right to foreclose or collect payments under the law. If you would like to know if your mortgage is legal or not, or know if you are paying the right party, we can help. Our initial consultations are free of charge. We are not attorneys. We are legal researchers and work closely with experienced lawyers who know how to help you find the evidence to help you keep your home. Call toll-free 1-855-2-KEEP-IT. That's 1-855-2-KEEP-IT today.
Without the right accessories, any guy can be off the mark. Whether you've invested thousands in your arsenal or you own a single trusted firearm, a visit to AROutfitting.com is in order. It's one of the finest online selections of tactical optics and AR parts and add-ons, like EOTech, quick target acquisition with no peripheral loss. Browse the full range of Nikon scopes and binoculars. AROutfitting.com can illuminate your world with Streamlight gun-mounted lights from keychain to large handhelds up to 1,100 lumens. Find some stability with Battenfield tactical bipods. AirOutfitting.com has CMMG gun parts, barrels, assemblies, handguards, part kits, and more. Plus mag-full clips and magazines. I know I've got you excited, so take a breath. Head to aroutfitting.com. The site's super easy to navigate and features a ton of technical info, including links to manuals. We also welcome vendor and manufacturer inquiries. Remember, if you don't see it, we can get it at aroutfitting.com.
Okay, nurse, let's get this man to the ER stat.
Right away, doctor.
We see this every day. Heart attack or angina pain due to blocked and clogged arteries. Chelation can remove obstructions or blockages from arteries and help avoid painful and expensive surgery. Now there's Angioprim. It's a liquid oral chelation product that you take with juice. You start to feel the results fast. Angioprim increases blood flow all over the body, and that means more energy and strength to take on the day with less aches and pains. 60 years of research has gone into chelation, and Angioprim is the result. A safe and easy way to unblock your veins and arteries from buildup that slow circulation.
Paging Dr. Jones. Please report to the emergency room right away.
Log on now for a special radio offer from Angioprim. That's angioprim.com/radio. ANGIOPRIM. Angioprim.com/radio or call 877-882-7221. That's 877-882-7221.
Welcome to What Really Happened Radio. Visit us online at whatreallyhappened.com. And now, set your eyes on the future and let's consider what really happened.
And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. Last segment of our program today. Do you remember those Antifa riots in Berkeley last year? And at one of the rallies, several firefighters and police officers personally witnessed at close range a mob of Antifa rioters attack a guy who was just sitting on a wall. And the attackers would have killed the man if the cops had not interrupted the attack and arrested a few of them. Well, apparently yesterday, after this outrageous trial, the Antifa attackers were found not guilty, mainly because the victim was a Trump voter, thus a bad man and deserving of getting beaten to within an inch of his life. Even the prosecutor, whose job it supposedly is to convict the Antifa attackers, described the victim as repulsive and dislikable. And the judge allowed Antifa and BAMN to pack every seat in the courtroom every day, where they constantly booed and hissed and held up banners and interrupted witnesses. The entire trial was a circus, and the judge never once stopped it or threatened a mistrial. Antifa members even stalked the jurors and yelled threats and lies at them during the trial. This is a travesty of justice. We've lost the rule of law. We have descended into mob rule. If the mob says kill the Trump supporter, that's what's going to happen, and the courts will let him go. Now, yesterday, I think it was, we mentioned that Southern Poverty Law Center had agreed to a settlement with an organization that they had smeared as a Muslim terrorist organization or some such nonsense. It's not like anybody pays attention to Southern Poverty Law Center. But they agreed to the settlement, which was a blow to their credibility. It's the first time it's happened in the history of the Southern Poverty Law Center where they had to come on out and say, yes, we were wrong to label this organization this way, and we're going to pay them, I think it was a little over $1 million. Well, that has opened the floodgates, because now about 60 organizations are considering lawsuits against the Southern Poverty Law Center for being falsely branded as white supremacists or terror organizations or things like that. And remember, whatreallyhappened.com, at one point, we made the Southern Poverty Law Center's list of websites you should never, ever, 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 ever read, or your nose will drop off. So we'll see what's going to happen there. Well, we're coming up here to the end of the show. I'm going to get one computer story in here. Google has apparently killed off domain fronting, so secure communications just got tougher. And it's basically, this domain fronting was used as an anti-censorship technique to bypass filtering. And Google has now killed that off. They want total control. We must have control of the internet. We must control the discussions. All your computers belong to us. Meanwhile, it's come on out that YouTube's piracy filter is blocking out things like MIT course videos, Blender videos, and other legitimate videos as well. All right, there's the music. Time for me to get on out of here and get something useful done with the rest of the day. Please stay tuned for John Stadmiller. I'm sure he's got lots of interesting stuff to be sharing with you. Please take what you learn here and share it with everyone that you know, face to face, have a conversation. Let's bring back the art of the interpersonal interaction. And because social media, it is totally controlled and it's totally filtered. It's the New World Order. Anyway, we'll be back tomorrow. Aloha, America.